For disappeared into the light. Don't walk to the light. Not completely disappeared into the light. It's close. Sun will be setting in about 2 hours. About an hour, say about an hour and a bit. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, I think you can hear me. Can I be heard? What's the word? Remember the days when I used to give the long intro and the spiel and explain what the show's about and what we're going to be talking about? You know, disclaimers and all that beautiful stuff. So dedicated. I still am, but in a different way now. I forbid it. Consider it forbade. Alright, what's my town looking like? We got Mike, we got Game, we got Sunlight. What's that? Live goal. Oh, I forget you're supposed to do all that. Testy. It's a nice soldier got there. Not good enough for Radan as a boss fight though. See what sounds like. See what's. Man, that sun is like all up in there. Right, what do we want to? I remember correctly. I think that leads to the castle somehow. Like I've been there already. Let's get this out of the way. Get this out of the way. I don't know if I changed the stream settings. Right, wait, I didn't. What was that title? Snap. That should tell me where I am. But it's not. Title didn't change. That's odd. Maybe there's a threshold that you need to walk through. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Anything, Azula. I think anything in general. You shouldn't be smoking anything. Not even fish. Smoked fish does taste great though. You shouldn't be there when the burning is happening though. Put it that way. It harms people around you, it harms your wider society. So for instance, like, so a lot of people fail to understand that burning herbs, as you put it, does the same respiratory damage as burning tobacco. The lol is tobacco is also a herb in terms of it being a plant. But yeah, it does the same respiratory damage to not only you, but the people who are in contact with it. So that's secondhand smoke. But you get the double whammy with the herb because you get the psychoactive part of it, which basically damages your brain function and potentially damages, you know. I'm not going to go that far down. What's up, Abito? Going outside's even worse, man. No one wants to smell that shit. Like it's absolutely a nuisance smell, you know. But if you actually want to discuss it, like in a serious way, I invite you to come up on the stage. I'll show you how to connect in a minute, and we could talk about it a bit more seriously. But in passing, there's no good reasons to do it. Yeah, in your yard, anywhere, right? what you should like, I would like to have a conversation with you, Azula, right? But what you should ask yourself is, why do you do this thing? Right? Where did you learn to do it from, and how does it benefit you to continue to do it? Disagree, Cook. I disagree. It's an RPG, open world RPG. So that means you get to make various different decisions, which is good for your cognitive faculties. Got hand-eye coordination, got problem solving, you got navigation, got memory, got item management, inventory management. It's clearly good reasons to play it. All right, what's not a good reason to do is to be in this area though. I can't remember why. Doesn't show me the map yet. But yeah, there are plenty of good reasons to play games in general. In terms of like pros, cons, like a cost benefit type of thing. There are plenty of good reasons to play games. Yes, I do, Black Chad, but I feel stronger about smoking. There's the diseases and like the just the issues that come along with smoking societally. It's designed to target kids primarily, get them trapped into a life of addiction, which essentially robs them of their freedom. Like addiction robs you of bodily autonomy. So the same thing that people argue for the rights that allows them to do the thing actually prevents you from being able to express that right. Ironically, okay. How are we able to say that? Like the studies show that I think 80% of all people who smoke begin smoking before the age of 20, and they're chemically dependent before the age of 18. That means your brain isn't even fully developed before you're chemically dependent on the substance. Being chemically dependent on the substance changes how you think or how you orientate your life. Okay, so essentially that when you sit there and say, oh, but I have, it's my body, it's my right to do what I want, your rights as your like tabula rasa or your blank self have already been robbed from you, right? Systemically. So yeah, it robs you of your freedom like that, and it also robs you of your health and your money and your sanity. Right? Cannabis-induced psychosis is a thing, right? What's up, Christine? What's up, to drain to LARP? I too feel that way. Thanks for tapping the like. I appreciate that. I don't think. Oh, is that where it is? I see. Wait. Oops. Oh, okay, they lost. I get where we are now. Right, what might have to happen is I might have to restart the stream. What's up, go? Good man, how you been? The light doesn't really help either. But it's Friday. What's been happening in these TikTok streets? What's been going down? Right, let's get out of there. If we can actually. Are they gonna let me teleport? They are. Thanks for tapping that like. But anyways, yes, I'm saying smoking should be banned. I would like to talk to some people about it, but it seems we're in a dodgy algorithm today. Dodgy algorithm today. Dodgy algorithm. Damn, that's up. What I'll do is I'll test the request feature. That is unfortunate, Stephen or Stefan. That's super unfortunate. But that doesn't justify smoking. You know, you got all kinds of diseases caused by smoking, respiratory diseases, blood related diseases, etc. What do you say? Can't argue. Well, we haven't even begun to speak about it yet. We're waiting for somebody to come up and actually talk. I actually want to hear some hot takes, like arguments about things that I wasn't considering before. Thanks for reposting, Goat Man. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, I am tuned as well. My bad. Uh, is it really loud? Like, As time goes on, your ears will adjust. Don't worry. Cash, come up. Let's talk about it, right? I don't know why you think it's important to bring up alcohol in a conversation about smoking, but I do agree that alcohol is definitely a problem and should probably be banned or at least restricted heavier too. But smoking is the primary killer right now. It's 8 million people a year it kills, right? 7.5 roughly die from smoking directly, right? Produces diseases, etc. that kills them. Then 1.6-ish million people, like 8 is like a rounded number. It kills 1.6 million people from secondhand smoke. So that's real. Come up, Finn. Give me an argument for free will. I don't think free will exists. I don't think anyone. Look, no, let me not say that. So far, I haven't heard anyone prove a case that free will actually exists and that you could use free will to smoke or use free will to do anything. Right? There's not a good argument for free will that I've heard yet. So come up here and prove to me that free will is real. Then, if you think you're so sure about that, come and prove it to me. People do things because they're coerced, right? People do things because of determinism, because it was ordained. They're destined to do it. People do things because of their biology. Right? People do things because of biopolitics. Right? There's layers to it. People do things because of their psychology, their subconscious mind. People do things for a lot of reasons. But to say it's free will is not provable. It's not even demonstrable. How, KD? All right, like you guys, like I do like chat. I did say today I'm gonna chill and talk to the chat, but you guys got a lot to say from the chat. Prove, right. So give me your best argument that free will exists. Right. I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding on what free will actually is. They think free will is just choice. It's not just choice. Okay? Choice is a part of free will, but free will extends beyond just simply making arbitrary choices. You can't actively do whatever you want. You can't think whatever you want. This is what I'm saying to you. Like you've never thought about it. This is what I know you. How I know you've never thought about it, because you can't. You can't do what you want. You can't think what you want. Yeah, I know it sounds like I'm saying, just like I'm trying to make you like turn down the saturation on your life and just make it all black and white and dismal. No, that's not what I'm aiming to do by saying this to you. I'm not trying to make you feel depressed or nihilistic by saying there's no free will. I'm just saying, hey, look, this is a reality that we're observing. If you can explain otherwise, I would like to hear it, you know. Yeah, even that's true as well, go man. Even the idea of will is like it's ill-defined also. Philosophers, various different types of philosophers have different views on what the will is. Like, so it's like all of the mind stuff really is woo-woo when you start boiling it down. Who created no free will? What do you mean? Well, it depends, I guess. Look, I do think like so. I say this often, right? If I'm feeling ultra pessimistic, then I'm more like lean towards hard determinism. If I'm feeling a bit optimistic, I'll more balance myself with like a what's it called again? Mind fart, brain fart. I forget what it's called, right? Yeah, I've not thought about it in a while, right? But there's a middle ground, right? My brain's just gone blank, right? I'll find out exactly what the word is. Compatibilism. Bleh. Been a long day. So essentially, it'd be like the choices you can express, right, would be your agency, but free will would be something greater than that. But one could argue. I tried to my blinds aren't like thick enough. They're like So like where I'm sitting is like low, and it's like this. So it's nothing I can really do but open the blinds and make it brighter. You know, like do too much, which is not necessary. So I would use a standard definition of free will or like an Oxford definition. Now I know dictionaries aren't authoritative; they're just descriptive. Okay? But I think it's a good working definition if you're not going like too deep philosophically. So that, like an Oxford definition is the ability to act unconstrained by necessity or by fate or at one's own discretion. Okay, so that's the kind of like just the base layer of free will that I like to talk about. But yeah, like anyways, like the view on compatibilism has more to do with I think it's called libertarian free will, right? But that has more to do with politics than actual like biological realities. It's like the need like linguistically the need to be able to hold an I accountable. Right? Am I mistaken? No. So when I say libertarian free will, I don't necessarily mean it in a partisan way. Libertarian, right? It's yeah, anyways, right? Who cares? Yeah, I know, I know, great man, right? But yeah, I didn't mean it in a partisan type of way, right? Libertarian. But yeah, the point I was trying to make anyway is the ideas of a person that has some accountability, right? That is a layer we build psychologically. That's not a physical reality. You know, like hard determinism is basically bound by physical reality. That compatibilism is like, yes, there's a physical reality, but then there's this extra layer. You know, got it. Yeah. I didn't see your question, but you like feel free to request up and you can talk to me, bro. Like, yeah, yeah, weed can kill you though. Like, it can degrade your mind to the point where you make really bad decisions. So it can impair you cognitively to the point where you make some bad decisions. Like you operating machinery, you know, like lots of problems. Now, does the substance itself, like on one initial use, kill you? No, right? But one could argue the substance of alcohol doesn't kill you that way either. It's a build up, right? It's too much of the toxin in your body. Anyways, right, what we want to do. Well, yeah, it's not just self sabotage. Right. So yes, there is a level. You could say it's self sabotage at the point. So like linking back into the free will concept, where you get this like libertarian idea. The idea of self sabotage is like that same kind of accountability. You need a I or a subject to hold account. Because if you fully embrace determinism, right, the subjectivity of the I in like our laws and in our structures just disappears. It dissolves. The I as a person and a you as an individual just dissolves in hard determinism. Because it doesn't, like, there is no subject. It's just A happens, B follows, C follows. It doesn't matter about your individual subjectivity. But like the libertarian or the compatibilist view allows for that subjective view of self sabotage or, you know, choice or agency. Okay? But it's really there for systems to hold you accountable. Like that's why we do it. But we know for a fact that your biology informs the things you can and can't do. Things that have occurred in the past determine what will be the outcome in the future, right? So if I just dropped you in the middle of life, right? There are things which you were, right? There are things that happen before you were born, right? And there are things that are going to happen after you die. Right? You have no effect on those things that happen before you were born. You have very little to no effect on the things that will happen after you die, right? So that's like a biological reality. Okay, that's like the hard part of it. But so people don't get nihilistic and like depressed or do terrible things, we like ease that with language and ideas on top of it. But the truth is, like, no one really knows what's going on when they got to Earth. Like, no one's figured it out yet. It's like, but yeah. Anyways, look. I'm a little bit wonky because I'm tired after work. Sure, come up then, alright? Come up. And we can actually have a conversation rather than me just yapping. You figured it out, we'll share. Don't worry, it's a soda. Sugar-free tropical drink. Made to imitate the drink that used to be called Lilt. Right, anyways, I've been running around in this place far too long. Let's try at least make some progress. But yes, anyways, I want to hear some hot takes, some random arguments or, you know, points I haven't thought about, and I'll just come up with a response on the fly, just for practice sake. Yeah, there are lots of carcinogens, right? But yeah, like it's a silly argument, right? To compare smoking to food, right? Food is a necessity, smoking is not. The value gained from eating is far surpasses the value gained from smoking. So it's just they're not really comparable in that way. But yeah, like there are carcinogens and all kinds of stuff. All right, so you guys are saying a lot of stuff in the chat, bro. Just hit the little the blue and the pink person in the bottom corner, and we can talk and play the game. So get some like something productive happening here. What are you talking about? So respiratory damage, right, is a thing without being exposed to the carcinogens. Okay, so emphysema, COPD, lung cancer. Okay, that's why I banned smoking. Okay, now yes, you can get all different types of C words. That's true, right? But that's C word speaks more to right. So there are things that trigger the mutations in our cells, right, which brings on cancer. Okay. But yes, eating a sausage is carcinogenic, just like smoking a cigarette. But the respiratory damage that comes with the cigarette is going to get to you a lot faster, probably, than the build-up of cholesterol, etc., from the sausage. Smoking cigarettes also does build up cholesterol in your body too, ironically. I think so, anyways. I kind of think, am I going the right way? There's a way to get back into the castle from around here. I just can't remember how. Or get into this area here where the dragons are. Tree 2. Right? I really should have nah, it's Friday, man. I'm too exhausted to really care. But there's a lot to it. We've been discussing this at different times, at different streams. There's a lot to it. What's my theory? On what? Damn. Yo, where's my trident? This fan isn't helping. It's still hot as hell. I mean, that's an interesting take, J Figs, but I don't know. I don't know if you could ever really count a computer as God. It'd be a stretch of the definition of God, at least, at the minimums. But I think the invention of God happened in ancient times. So it's like during part of the hominidae early development. I think think that's when it was like the inception of God was created. It goes back to what I think is like the prime theory that explains it, which is hyperactive agency detection device. I think that's what sets the ball rolling. That in combination with the bicameral mind, I think they're the two kind of catalysts for God concepts, and then people will elaborate on them. If y'all stop believing everything and go to Bible study, read, y'all can find out. What do you mean? Like, come up here, bro. Are you trolling? Are you just was that meant to be a is that meant to be satire? So you guys gotta be a troll, bro. Surely you don't think that. If y'all stop believing everything and then brings up the Bible, you gotta be joking, bro. That guy's probably just said that and just went. He can't be serious. No, like those words sound familiar, but no, I've not heard the stoned ape theory. I have heard the magic mushroom theory and how that plays into the invention of the Bible and all that kind of stuff. The metaphor, but that being said, right, that theory on being exposed to like psilocybin and psychoactive substances during our developmental or our evolution, I think yes, that is it's quite possible that has a big part to play, and not just only God beliefs, but just how the human mind's formed over time. I think that's possible. I put it this way, though I think it's possible, it's too much of a nice, neat story. We love our nice, neat stories, but reality is usually a bit more messy. What exactly in the Bible should I believe in, right? It's just like, what does that mean? Bro, finding a crown of thorns, that like, oh my gosh, that is crazy. Like Kendrick's got a crown of thorns. Like, what does that mean? What's that mean? Like, Romans were like creative with their torture, right? They're the Romans. They created romanticism, I think, right? Or it's based on them. Yeah, they're poetically evil, so they would do shit like that. It's like, what does that even mean? He would have been one of many. Nah, actually, I don't think that's true. Actually, I think that the crown of thorns is specific to the Jesus story, but even still, that's just a bit of nonsense. Hey, what do you mean no more AI thumbnails, bro? You are an AI thumbnail. You're an AI avatar. Yeah, tomb would be empty if no one died. That's kind of how that works. It's kind of how tombs work, you know? When people die, the body gets put in there. It has to stay there. Well, I'm joking. Anyways, right. Although I'm vaguely interested in talking about banning smoking and the invention of God, we still haven't had any requests up. So I think the right thing to do is to restart the stream so we get into the correct algorithm. Because it doesn't seem like we're talking to the people that we should be talking to. Got a lot of finger warriors here. So I'm gonna end it on this side and boot up again. Hell is that? It is Friday though. Like me personally, I would actually rather be doing something else, but I made a commitment, so yeah. Suckerfish, you wouldn't get it. Don't worry. I should really I really can't help it, right? I'm tired. It's the end of the week. I had an exhausting day, so I'm not as sharp as I could be with my points and my arguments and all that kind of stuff. But it is what it is. Another day. Get better me. So what kind of thumbnail should I use then, Suckerfish? To be honest, I found that it's low-key a waste of time, no matter how you think about it. Be gone. Ah, that could be why. Who told them to set the category to that? It could be why. Got a change of category. Do 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 do. Alright, folks, we need to tap that screen if you want people to come up and actually have a conversation. It needs to get shared out so people can see it. Or I could just enjoy playing the game offline. And I'll come back at the usual time. A screenshot of the boss I'm fighting? What do you mean, from the actual game itself? Oh, from the actual stream, sorry. That's usually a bit crusty in terms of image quality. It's not great. What's up, Aston? 82. You know what? So let's get you out here. You missed the old prompt. Which one? Humans invented gods. I know. Like I find like the intersection between my leftist people and my atheist people, they all tend to be drug addicts. So they don't much like this type of talking. But like, look, all sides can be critiqued, a bit like that, you know. But I think it's something that they should be aware of, you know. Yes, a lot of the leftist people, yes, a lot of the atheist people tend to be addicted to cannabis and other substances. So having this kind of discussion is grating to them. It's real. Just in the same way Christians and right wingers are addicted to drugs also. So that I just care about this. But yeah, I did notice that. But I don't care, right? As long as I know I'm doing what's right, that's all that really matters to me. So there's that. Found the hidden YouTube, comes in clutch for sleep ASMR. What hidden YouTube? Both. Any type, Aiden. Like, there isn't, put it this way, the cons outweigh the pros in almost every scenario. Economically, the cons outweigh. From a health standpoint, the cons outweigh. Even from an enjoyment standpoint, the cons outweigh the pros. So it's like, there are not good reasons to do it. It's people get coerced into trying these substances, and then by being like socially pressured into them, they become addicted to them, and then they normalize it. It becomes a normal, a standard to be this way. But the reality is you're not actually getting much back from what you put in. It's taking more away from you. So I think people just, it's not that, all right, some people are fully aware of this, right? But they choose to do it anyway. Most people aren't. That's the problem. Most people really aren't. There is a, there should be like an entrance to a cave around there somewhere. I don't know. I wouldn't say that's a secret though. I've got like various different YouTube channels probably. Alright, so give me a good reason to think that should be the case, right? Why should smoking be legal just because alcohol is legal? If you think about alcohol as a chemical substance, the uses of it far outweigh the uses of tobacco or cannabis as a product. Well, maybe not cannabis so much, but tobacco for sure. Yeah, I think look, I'm not I'm anti psychoactive substances in general, just for recreational use, because I think it can degrade the human psyche and the body, deteriorate the body too much. But if we had to find like a reasonable middle ground, yes, I'd much prefer people to use like what they call like tinctures and edibles and oil topicals for their various medical ailments than smoking, right? Because, right, for instance, right, so the biggest one of the biggest arguments that people who smoke weed like to say, which is really a lie, right, is that they smoke for medicinal purposes. It's a lie, okay? Because when you smoke the cannabis plant, you do more damage than you get good out of it. When you like make creams, topical creams, etc., edibles and stuff like that, you can get more out of it medicinal wise than you could from smoking it. Burning it, what it does to your respiratory system, what it does to your prefrontal cortex, is nowhere near like, so like the loss versus gains, the feeling of being high, the production of dopamine, it's not even worth it when you look at what it does to your respiratory system, your blood circulation, the development of your brain, later on development of psychosis, etc., addiction, right, cravings, all these kinds of things. So the temporary dopamine hit that you get isn't worth the damage it does by smoking it. Now, edibles can be dangerous too, but they're safer than smoking it in terms of respiratory damage, right? So if you had to find a safer middle ground, yes, finding that old vape in it. Well, I don't really, I'm not pro vaping either, but just to be real, the view that smoking it for medicinal purposes is what you're doing is it's absolutely a lie. Okay, it's a type of it's like a post hoc rationalization or justification of what you're doing. You're already taking drugs, you're already addicted to drugs, but you need reasons to make it appear like it's normal or acceptable. So these are the excuses people make. But medicinally, you can repurpose the cannabis plant in many different ways without smoking it at all. Yeah. One second, I will bring it up in a second. So I'll get to safe space. I agree, K1. Like, so, like, if I wanted to, there's an argument I thought about framing, right? I think any self-respecting man shouldn't be addicted to a substance because essentially that makes them weak, right? And weak on various different levels, right? They're weak in terms of their discipline, their impulse control. They're weak in terms of this is another thing that can control them, pull their strings, right? So if I wanted to frame it as like an affront to the male ego, it's very easy to do. So you basically you're a slave. Well, the thing is, right, legal options as it stands isn't actually safer. It's not regulated in a way that the ad or the marketing would make you believe. Okay, this is why when I started to actually look into it, doctors can't prescribe smoking marijuana. They can only prescribe things that are FDA approved. But there's legal, let's say, there's legal grey areas where you can get recommendations and certificates and such, but not direct prescriptions. The people who produce dispensaries and grow legally, they can't actually regulate it in a stringent way themselves. They get different batch quantities and qualities like any crop, etc. And in the same way, ironically, right, so GMO farming has done great things in terms of producing mass quantities of food for different people across the world, but it's also done terrible things in terms of making farmers dependent on specific crop types versus things like pesticides, famines, and stuff like that. Same could be said in what is going on to become tobacco 2.0 with the cannabis industry. Okay, being able to regulate a plant and the production of it to smoke is not something you could do on an FDA scale. And I don't even think America's FDA is even all that in comparison to like to our kind of regulatory bodies in Europe. You know, I think they're pretty shit in comparison. But that being said, it's not actually safer. Okay, it's the marketing, and the reason why it's done like that is to move people. So there's big tobacco. Okay, tobacco, it's like let's say it's Its business plan is to get children addicted young and have them as customers for life or until they kick the bucket based on their various diseases from smoking. Okay, their view is to pivot from the sale of tobacco products, e.g., cigarettes, into the sale of things like vapes, chewables, and eventually weed. Okay, part of the market and how it's been done is like, for instance, so like, yeah, would I want a friend or a family member to go and buy some weed off a shady guy in a dark alley somewhere, and and get harmed? No, I wouldn't, right? But giving me that argument versus, but you'd prefer your friend or family go into a nice, well lit shop and a well organized shop. I also wouldn't prefer that, right? Because the exploitation happens on a higher level at the shop. But the marketing would have people believed. So this is like, there are various things to walk through here, right? So like in the 60s, 70s, free love movement, the idea of revolution was joined to this view of marijuana, LSD, and various other psychoactive substances. But that was part of the manufacturing of an ideology about freedom, revolt, revolution, bodily autonomy, third wave feminism, all these things, right? It was part of that culturally. Weed was a staple in that, like LSD was, and various other things, okay? But the stigma that came from that, with the attacks via the CIA and other agencies across the world, stigmatized weed so badly that it's now had like it's now having like an overcorrection in terms of its publicity. So the overcorrection looks like people thinking of it as a panacea, like a miracle drug, like nothing bad can happen. The overcorrection looks like now it's in music videos, now it's in TV, now it's in movies. Now you got like Seth Green and stuff like that, right? That's the overcorrection. So now it comes into circulation publicly in the public consciousness. But what also comes with that is marketing lies to now make cannabis tobacco 2.0, right? How is that going down with propaganda like this? People who buy weed on the street get spiked, so they should buy it from a dispensary, right? That's a lie. Majority of the people who have ever bought a bag of weed on the street, whatever country they're in, did not get spiked. Okay, that's a part of the overcorrection in terms of being able to market to people. But why does it also become dangerous? Instead of you buying like I don't want to make it seem like obviously I'm anti using psychoactives, but I'm kind of like giving the other side of the argument. Okay, you could look at weed as a type of cottage industry or type of socialist type of activity in terms of how people communicate and network to be able to consume drugs. Now that's the lighter side, but there's also a darker side, like funding terrorism, human trafficking side. So like if you ever saw a TV show called Weeds or whatever, like you got like some innocent looking white women and they're all older, they're like, that's that overground level, like the over publicized part, right? But the underground part is the dark part. Problem is, what I'm trying to explain here is when you move weed from this thing that's commercial, illegal, right, or illicit into the commercial space, right? What you create is something called a profit incentive, right? And economically speaking, that creates a drive to accumulate more capital and accumulate more customers. But how does one accumulate more customers and capital via weed, right? In the same way that they did it on the street, but worse, right? So what happens is you create a chemical arms race to make cannabis more potent, which is why in the 70s, cannabis, wherever it was found, was below 15% THC. Now in 2026, it's closer to 90% THC because it's chemically engineered to be more potent, more addictive, and more flavorful, e.g., making your endocannabinoid system interact with the dopamine production very much worse, right? So the tolerance is higher. That being said, when you move it from the street level and what a street level access can do to the substance to the commercialized industry, right, like big pharma, you create that chemical arm race to make it more potent, more toxic, to get more customers, to create more capital. So when you reduce it back down to the question, would you want your friends or family to buy a bag of weed off a stranger on the street or from like a dispensary? The actual obvious answer is the guy on the street, not the dispensary. Right? I know it sounds dumb to say it like that. Do I want that to be the case? No, I don't want that to be the case. Because like I said, there's a dark part to it, e.g. the human trafficking, the funding terrorism, etc. That is the dark part. But that dark part also exists in the commercialized space, right? People forget that what is considered a black market is a parallel market in economics, right? It exists simultaneously to overground legal production of substances. A study was done, I think, in 2018. 25% of all alcohol products that were consumed in that year, I think even up to now, were produced on the black market. So that means people who just went to a shop and bought a bottle of liquor like Hennessy or whatever it is you drink, you actually bought a bootleg version that was made probably in someone's basement or, like, you know, by some cartel people. But it looked exactly like the real thing, tasted like the real thing. You didn't know. Okay? That's how the black market actually works. But the problem is, who would be set up and ready to go into production immediately once it's legalized? The people who are running it illegally already. All right, so it's primarily a cash-based business anyway. So that washes, again, dark money in a like a legal looking way. So so to balance the argument again, they both have their pros and cons, right? The people who do it on a street level and the people who do it on a commercial level. But the reality is cannabis can't be prescribed to you to smoke because it's not FDA approved and it's not regulated to that level. And it can't be. But the reality is, if you come from the ideology which we brushed over previously, like a little bit before, 60s, 70s, free love, revolution, etc., your view is not to turn this natural plant into a capitalist engine to exploit you more, right? Your view is the opposite. Let the shit be free, right? Don't turn it into like Coca-Cola. Don't turn it into insert thing here. Okay, your view would be that. But my view is ban the shit completely, right? Don't let big tobacco exploit you by cannabis 2.0, right? Because it's going to destroy your respiratory system and it's going to destroy your mind. But there's going to be a profit incentive for it in a big way, which makes it faster. Now, who bears the brunt of it the most? It's the kids, right? Statistically, there are 1.3 billion smokers in the world. 80% of that 1.3 billion smokers started smoking before the age of 20 and were chemically dependent by the age of 18, with the earliest debuts at 9 and 12. Okay, so who really is the actual ideal customer for cannabis and tobacco? It's children. Okay, but why are they the primary customers, right? Because they don't have the prefrontal cortex to actually be able to say this is a bad decision or what it does to my health or what comes out of it. They are socially orientated towards drug use because of adults, yes, but adults were also kids too. Yeah, I will gladly let you up. You just need to request, okay? But anyways, right? That's who bears the brunt of it, right? And those kids become adults. And as I said, right? There's plenty of data to suggest that using cannabis before the age of 25 basically impedes mental development, right? Biologically, physically, and psychologically. Right? And the studies are showing, I think they've done one, I want to say like 2019 with Amsterdam and London, right? So the cases of psychosis that were linked to weed were significantly more, right? And weed being the primary cause of the psychosis. So there's a lot to it, right? So it has a knock-on effect. It's not again, like I said, with the marketing of it, you know, the big overcorrection, because weed had so much stigma in the past, now it's looked at like it can do no wrong, it can do no harm. No, like always be aware. When someone tells you there is no downsides to something, there's a lie there. All right, it might have some good stuff to it, but no downsides at all. That's a lie. Okay, so you have to be aware of that. People will overlook that. They'll still repeat misinformation like cannabis isn't addictive. Of course it is. What are you talking about? It literally upregulates the production of dopamine and raises your tolerance to the THC, so you need it. Right? That's addiction. It creates cravings. Right? It creates you know, all kinds of issues. Right? But again, the average person who's listening to me say this, they are thinking in a comparative way. They say, but alcohol is bad too. Yes, I know, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, you can request up. It's just whether your TikTok allows you. I will test it on my end to see if it's possible. So, but it should be. Yes, I do agree. Alcohol, look, Right, so I agree that alcohol is bad, but do I agree that it's significantly worse? No, right? Reason being is because I've seen what actual exposure to cannabis and tobacco does to the human body. Long term use, not good. Long term use of alcohol, not good either. But in terms of the psychoactive properties of cannabis and what comes out of that, it can be very bad, right? Because it's I know now this is like I was gonna say like philology, right? Which is so completely random, right? But anyways, the archetype of the person who is orientated to drinking versus the archetype of the person who's orientated to smoking is very different, right? And how people conceal their habits and usages are different also. Okay. Alcohol is bad. It does F over millions of life, alcoholism, not just the individual that uses the substance, their friends and families, their environment too. It is bad, right? And I don't dismiss that. I don't like to use them in the same conversation because it becomes a red herring and a whataboutism rather than solving the problem. But what I was trying to explain is how people mask cannabis use is different to how people mask alcohol use. Alcohol is designed, or in Britain, it's designed, alcoholism was produced to cope with mass exploitation. So it's social. This is why there are more pubs in Britain than there are schools, more pubs in Britain than there are hospitals. Okay. Historically, it's designed to move people in a certain direction. Whereas harder drugs and cannabis, etc., it's more covert uses. So its problems exist in a different social level. But they're just bad. They're both bad as well. Not bad as each other, but they are both bad. Okay. Anyways, it certainly does do something, right? So, all right. So yeah, you can request that. Apparently, it works just right. But anyways, enough of me yapping. Let's hear what someone else has to say. Hello. Hello. It sounds like someone's lungs are spilling out back there. Hello. I don't think he meant to request that. Right. Hello.
What's going on?
Hello. How you doing, bro? Is it Ian or is it? Yeah, it's Ian.
Yeah, it's Ian. What's going on, man?
Good, bro.
Yeah,
You.
I don't really understand what some of your arguments were.
So
Like
wait. So
the
slow down.
don't let them turn it into.
So slow down,
Huh?
right? There are a couple things that I do. We're gonna discuss this topic, right? First, obviously, to say hello. Nice to meet you, right? My name is Seth. If you didn't know, right? So on the screen there are like three different topics, right? One is like debate any random topic or just like give me your hot takes. One is smoking should be banned, and one is humans invented God. Which one would you like to talk about?
The one you've been talking about for the past couple of minutes.
Right, so smoking should be banned. So if you don't mind, there are like a few like kind of preliminary questions I like to ask guests that want to talk about that subject first before we start talking. Okay.
Okay.
So first question is, have you ever worked in or around the tobacco industries? What tobacco or cannabis industries?
No, I've been a cashier that sold them though.
No, that's okay. Like, I don't mean it in that way. That's like a customer service type of thing. It's not directly. The second question is, have you used either of those substances?
Of course.
Do you mind sharing what age you started using them?
Probably. Well, started smoking around 17, but not tobacco. That was probably a couple years later. Probably like I don't know, 2021 when it started becoming regular.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. But last question is, have you ever gave up or tried to quit in the past or took a what do they call it, a tolerance
Oh, I
break?
take I take like a 3 week break every month.
So you take
Every,
you take tolerance breaks, yeah?
yeah,
Cool. All right, so floor is yours. You can make any point you want to make. What's up, Neil?
that's funny. I'm not even British. I just saw that in the chat.
I don't even know
But
if
basically,
Ian
I
is a
don't
British name
understand
though.
your
I think Ian is a
your
European name. It seems like
yeah, like
Norwegianish or
shit.
something
What's
like
his
that.
name? The guy that wrote James Bond, Ian Fleming.
Well, yeah, he's definitely. Well, actually, I don't even know who he is actually in terms of as a person. But yeah, like
Uh,
as you were like,
Anyways, but I don't see how you can say don't let them turn it into tobacco when the industry is. those industries that you're comparing them to as like the 2.0
Mhm.
that they want to prep it to like overtake. They're they're money hatting all of these politicians to ban it, so that doesn't make any sense
So in the
even
past, that was
remotely because
true.
they're not buying these businesses once that law takes effect in November that bans all this shit.
So what law are you referencing?
Hemp has been federally legal in the United States since 2018.
Hemp.
They reclassified cannabis. Basically, it's two halves. Anything above 0.3% delta 9 THC is marijuana. Anything below is hemp.
Okay.
And basically, because they legalized it, they allowed more research into it, and they found out that there's a precursor to it called THCA. And in its natural state, it's non psychoactive, but as soon as you light it, you make it undergo the decarboxylation process that every plant that's ever been smoked and harvested and whatnot
Sorry,
undergoes on its own.
can you say what that word was again?
Decarboxylation,
What does that mean?
where it removes carbon and oxygen from it, because basically it's the exact same molecule as delta 9, but with an extra oxygen and carbon, and it drops that. Like every single immature weed plant starts out as a THCA plant
Okay, how did you find this out?
because it's been legal.
No, I mean, how did you individually find this out though? What was it that led you to find
Because
this
I
out?
was buying, and my plug was like confused why I was still buying because it's legal.
So that didn't that didn't answer the question. I asked you how do you know that information? What you just explained to me about the various like chemical reactions.
Because you can look it up. You can look up that they're nearly identically the same, just with an extra oxygen and carbon.
Okay, all right. That being said, anyway, so let me not distract from the point you were trying to make though. So you asked me why do I think it shouldn't become tobacco 2.0? Then you mentioned that tobacco companies have historically lobbied against cannabis. Is that is what you said before, right?
Because it eats into their market, yeah.
Yeah, so I do think there is some truth to that. I don't know the actual facts on that, but I also recognize how it has been positioned to take the place of tobacco sales since historically we are trending towards banning tobacco production and consumption across the world. So I believe that the market is pivoting to vapes and cannabis-based products. So I do think even though they may say one thing on the overground, on the back end, that is the idea because it's a similar type of product with almost the exact same customer background or the customer base.
Yeah, I just don't understand how, because like I said, like you're splitting the market. There's only so many dollars in this pie. They don't want an
Mm,
player in the
That's
game.
that's not true. That's not true, right? So I understand like why people might think that in terms of like as consumers, right? But when you're talking about production on a large scale, for instance, do you know how many different companies in the world exist that make screws, the exact same screws? Or how many companies in the world make bottled water? So
Are
what I'm
are
trying to
you
say
about to
is,
start talking about consolidation? Because there aren't, like, compared to the past, there aren't as many anymore.
yeah, but there are put it this way, there are rules against monopolizing overtly, right? So there are ways to do it covertly with parent companies and stuff like that. Yes, I understand that. But the view that you're saying that just simply because cannabis would eat into tobacco's margin, they wouldn't be orientating themselves to take over that industry. That's not true, right? Because there are various different competitors in the same market anyway, with any type of product, any type of service.
I mean, if you're talking about tobacco, there's really only, at least in the U.S., there's really only three tobacco companies.
So all I'm trying to say is I don't see the argument why tobacco isn't gonna sorry, cannabis isn't gonna become 2.0 based on what you're saying, right? Because from what I
Because
understand with the
nobody
dispensaries and
nobody
the
is gonna.
legalization and the packaging of it, it appears very much to be moving in that direction.
I definitely think that there needs to be regulation, like for example, criminalizing giving it to kids and whatnot. But that's a failure of our leaders. This stuff has been legal for 8 years, and to this day, that's why they're banning it. Is because they've done nothing for 8 years. There's no law mandating ID checks at these places.
Well,
And if it's such an
I mean,
issue, why didn't they
I don't
take an
know.
issue with us 8 years ago?
Don't get me wrong, right? I don't know the exact situation on the ground or the things you're referencing because I don't even live in the US. I live in the UK, right? So our system's a little bit different. So I'm not entirely aware of how it's going on the ground. But in terms of like the argument for why it shouldn't become tobacco 2.0, I think it's quite obvious in terms of the exploitation of the consumer base. What people fail to realize
Not
as
really,
well.
because you can grow your own. Like if
Yeah,
you are knowledgeable enough, you can grow your
we're
own.
talking about in a commercial aspect. Obviously, we're talking about the production
Yeah,
and
but
the
with
purchase of it.
legalization comes home cultivation.
Yeah, but that's a separate
Because
topic.
that's also part of this law. You're allowed to have, I think it's either 2 or 4 plants that you're allowed to grow at your
Right.
house.
That
And
true
it's a federal
true
law.
true as that might be, that's a separate topic in terms of tobacco 2.0. Right. We're talking about commercial production and consumption of it. Okay.
That's another thing I wanted to touch base on, because your analogy of exploitation being worse under a regulated market, that doesn't stack up to reality.
Yeah.
It's
So
actually the opposite.
what I was just about to get into is if you look at the statistics of who becomes addicted to substances like marijuana and alcohol abuse, it's actually people from lower incomes, right, or what we call lower working class, and they're actually 3 to 4 times more likely to end up dependent on these substances. That's the primary market that would be exploited. Now, the middle class and upper class will take a blow, but nowhere close to what the lower working class or poorer class people take, using illicit substances and using over-the-counter substances. Why it's also exploitative. The primary age for the market is people under the age of 25. We already know based on the studies
That's false.
that is not full. Statistically, 1.3 billion smokers in the world, and 80% of them start smoking before the age of 20, and the majority of them are chemically dependent before the age of 18. World Health
What about the people
Organization.
that drink before that age, though?
So that's
Because you're
sorry,
cherry picking
no,
substances that you
no,
disagree with.
stop, right? That's the red herring, right? You can check this up on the World Health Organization website. You can also check this up on the Ash Institute website, right? What I'm saying is statistically correct. The primary target, you yourself fit into the statistics based on the information you gave at the beginning of this conversation, right? The primary target for cannabis consumption and cigarette smoking is people under the age of 20. Okay, that's why it's exploitative. Now, it doesn't have to be said explicitly, but the reality is that. Okay, that's why it's considered a health epidemic.
There aren't the same level of risks associated with smoking cannabis, though. Like,
So, have you looked into
out
the
of the various
prefrontal
different
cortex
chemicals that
development?
are in tobacco and tobacco products, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of known individual carcinogens. You can't say the same for cannabis.
I agree, that's true, right? But in terms of what the substance does, so burning and consuming cannabis destroys your respiratory system, but it also has the extra level of damage that happens to your brain. What's basically called, how it interacts with the development of your prefrontal cortex through the endocannabinoid system. Right? Studies have shown that it reduces your IQ points by 6 to 8 when consumed before the age of 25, before the full development or the full maturation of the prefrontal cortex. So that's studied, that's documented, that's a fact. Okay. And in terms of the extra element, not just the biological element, you've got what's studied now and coined as cannabis-induced psychosis. Tobacco doesn't have that issue, addictive as it is, even though it's a fact that they've mixed extra chemicals with tobacco to make it more addictive. Things like ammonia to make it go to your head faster, make you get a rush quicker. Those things are true. Like tobacco does have lots of carcinogens and extra chemicals, true, but it doesn't have the extra psychoactive part to it that cannabis does.
But it does have nicotine in it, which makes it addictive.
Say
It
what?
makes it. It does have nicotine in it, which makes it addictive.
Cannabis does.
Psychologically, not just psychologically, but
Oh, so
physical as well.
you're talking about tobacco.
It seemed like you were talking about tobacco too.
So no, you made like a whataboutism between cannabis and tobacco, right? And I was explaining to you why it'd be more exploitative to take cannabis to the market in the same way as tobacco because of the psychoactive element of cannabis versus tobacco. Yes, tobacco
Yeah,
does have
that's
nicotine.
psychoactive.
Yes, tobacco is addictive, but yes, cannabis also is addictive.
But it doesn't give you physical dependency.
It does. Right?
No, it doesn't. It's
If,
psychological only.
yes, but
It's
that's
been peer
so.
multiple studies.
If you're
Stephen.
if you're talking about addiction, or as like a a mental disorder. Addiction is purely psychological. You could be addicted to a game, you could be addicted to porn, you could
No,
be,
it's
yes.
not. Addiction is
Listen,
not only
please, no, I'm
psychological.
talking about it as a mental disorder, right? When you
No, there are some
let me
addictions
finish,
that come with
let me
physical,
finish,
like for
please.
example,
No, no, no,
somebody
no,
that
no.
is
Let me
dependent on
finish.
alcohol
Let
will
me
die if
finish.
they stop
Let
cold
me
turkey.
finish, right? So, what we describe addiction as is a psychological disorder on its own. Now, when you add addiction with chemical dependency, now you're talking about drug abuse and overuse, right? That's what cannabis is. It's addictive psychologically, like gaming is, but it's also a substance you can become dependent on, or dependent on. Sorry, okay. So it's both. That's what I'm explaining to you. Right? And how that works is based on the THC content and what it does to your endocannabinoid system and the production of dopamine. Right? As you build a tolerance to it, you become dependent on it to be at a standard level in your life, which is why cannabis is linked to demotivation and depression, etc., because it drops your ability to produce dopamine naturally like you
I don't
did
think so.
before. Scientifically, it's a fact, okay?
Because that motivation thing, that's part of the original push and
Yeah,
like fear mongering.
yes, I agree. In terms of before you came on to the stream, I was talking about how it was overly demonized and how it was, like too vilified, right? But now we're at a place where it's been overcorrected, where people pretend it doesn't have any bad things because of the past. There is no substance that exists that's a panacea, meaning like it cures all. There is no substance that exists that doesn't have drawbacks. That there are no miracle cures, there are no miracle drugs. So we have to be honest and say, look, there are some good things about this, but there are some bad things about it too. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's disingenuous to say that just because there is something bad about it, that makes it the
There,
same or the
well,
same level as
there's a
any
whole
other substance.
list of bad things about it, but I'm not the one comparing the substances. That's an argument happening on the behalf of the user, not me. Okay, I don't compare tobacco to cannabis. I don't compare alcohol to
So you
cannabis.
think that
I don't
tobacco should
I
be
don't
banned as well?
compare cocaine to heroin. That's an argument for a user because they make this red herring type of whataboutism. Well, what about her? She does this. I only do this. Like that's a user's argument. That's not someone who's
So you
saying
think
ban it.
so you think that tobacco should also be banned?
Yes, yes, but, like that's my primary target of the things that I'm talking about. 100%. There's no two ways about it. I absolutely think tobacco should be banned. I think the production, the sale, and the consumption of it should be socially engineered out of human existence or of human societies for good.
It's only those two substances. Nothing else that you'd like to get rid of.
Oh, there's a bunch of things, but we're not talking about those things, are we? We're talking about smoking. Right, like if for instance, just like a lol, not disrespectfully, but if someone was to come up and say, well, I don't want crack to be banned, I don't want meth to be banned, I'd have the same argument with them. It's the form, it's what you're consuming, one, the substance itself, but the form in which you're consuming it is what we're actually debating about. Okay, because am I telling you cannabis as a plant that grows in the earth should be deleted? No, I'm not. Am I telling you tobacco as a plant that grows from the earth should be deleted? No, I'm not. I'm talking about specific production forms and consumption forms of it. Okay? If you want to go make some topical creams and edibles with your leaves, do that. Just try and do it safer. But should you smoke it? No.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to disagree.
Like you could say that, but you should probably give some points to why you disagree if you want to be taken seriously. Whoop. So do you have any?
I mean, at the end of the day, there are things that are worse that are also legal. So seems like you're cherry picking.
I wouldn't say that, right? So let me give you a very simple example of what you're doing, right? It's called whataboutism. In a debate setting, it's called a red herring, right? It's called it's a
Yeah, I get
fallacious
it. All you
fallacy.
TikTok guys think that you're Charlie Kirk. I get it. I get it. You're gonna tell me to debate.
No. All right, so I'm going to give you an analogy that helps you understand what it is you're actually saying when you say there are other things that are worse. So imagine, Ian, right? You have a sister or you have a wife, right? You go to pick up your sister or your wife at their job. And when you arrive at the job and you see your sister or your wife, you wave to them, but you look a bit closer and you see that your sister or your wife is having a confrontation with their boss. And they're having an argument, and your sister or your wife is expressing to the boss, I'm experiencing sexism at work, and this is how it's hurting me, right? But the boss, you hear the boss say, but racism is bad, ageism is bad, homophobia is bad, and, right? What did the boss just do right there? Do you understand where you stand now, Ian? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you one last question, Ian. Like, although it was nice talking to you and it was fun, do you have any plans of quitting in the future?
Depends on where the law goes.
So personally, do you have
To
any
be
views?
honest, I'm not sweating all too much because it's about to be legalized in Virginia, and that's only about a 30-minute drive away. So might have to move.
So
But at the end of the day, it's not going to really change anything.
so basically, you're saying you might consider quitting if the laws change, or you is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah,
Cool. That's cool. Like, I ask everyone that question. Some people have good reasons. Some people have bad reasons. Some people say no.
I'd
Like I
say
just
I'd
I just
say it's
won't. Right?
90-10, 90% chance I move, 10% chance I stop. Because at the end of the day, I don't really want to. Because and I know this is anecdotal, but all of the cancer survivors that I talked to while going through chemo, they told me, "Don't stop. You will get it again. Don't stop."
Please, like, so I understand that you. I'm glad that you preference that by saying preface that by saying it's anecdotal, but I really don't. I don't allow for talk about cancer in this subject because of the dangers of misinformation and what that could do to somebody that's going through remission or whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't like to talk about it in that way
Well, at
because
the end of the
it's
day,
dangerous.
cannabis
Okay.
in a situation like that, cannabis is not even as dangerous as the drugs that you give
But
someone. Like the
hey,
chemo.
look, but Ian, look, we tied up the conversation where we were. Like I said, I don't want to bring it back into a certain place. So good luck to you in the future if you think about
All right,
quitting.
you're being a little condescending, but all right,
No,
man.
no, don't get me wrong. I can explain in great detail why I don't want to discuss that type, but in very simple terms, associating cannabis consumption with cancer and cancer research can lead to misinformation, and people can get hurt, people can lose family members, and it's dangerous. Okay. So, but it was nice speaking to you, Ian. He dropped himself, by the way. I didn't drop him. But yeah. Uh,
Hello.
I do want to hear some hot takes though, or some random views. What's up, bro?
Hey man, how you doing?
Good man, you.
I've been listening. Man, I'm ready to talk. I've been listening for a minute. I got some things I want
I I I,
to talk
I could
about.
tell the fire is burning up inside, right? So I'm assuming you want to talk about smoking being banned.
Absolutely.
All right. So a couple questions for you before we begin. All right. Have you ever worked in or around the tobacco or cannabis industries?
No.
Have you ever used either of those substances?
Yes.
Do you mind sharing what age you started using them?
Probably like 16, 17.
Okay. Have you ever tried to quit or gone on a tolerance break?
Yeah, I go on tolerance breaks all the time.
Have you ever tried to quit?
No.
That was an uneasy no.
I mean, yeah,
I'll
no.
just play it. I'll just play it. I'll just play
Yeah.
it. You didn't have to answer that. But thank you for being honest. Now the floor is yours. You can make any point you want to make.
Okay. So one things that first off, I want to talk about cancer because cancer is a very important
I
thing,
would
especially
look
in my
with
family
with all due
when it
respect.
comes to.
With all due respect. Uh, sorry, I didn't ask your name. Can I get your name quickly?
It's Ken.
Kenya. With all due respect, or if you do want to come up here and have a conversation with me, I set like, and I'm not very strict, but there's certain parameters I don't want to cross, right? And you've already heard me say to the last guest that we won't be discussing cancer, so please, any points about that, we just move those to the side.
Well, yeah, but the thing is though, in relation to
No
this
buts. No,
conversation, it's very
exactly. No.
it's
So look, if you
well,
could
the
listen,
thing is, you can't
brother.
you
I don't
can't
want to
just
drop
take
you.
one part of what I want
I
to
don't want to
say and
drop
just say I
you.
can't say it.
Listen,
So
if that's going to be your escape out of the debate, fine. But I've warned you,
there's
right?
I'm not escaping from nothing. I have plenty
Okay.
to say.
So
That's just one thing I
right.
want to
So
say.
I've warned you about the rules of this type of engagement. Okay, we're not going to talk about cancer and cancer research. If you
Because
can agree to that,
because it's a crutch to you.
no.
Because it's a crutch to
All right.
your
So
argument. correct?
Right, you're a weakling and you can't speak, okay? He needed an escape. He heard me say to the last person, we're not discussing this, and he knew that was going to be his only way out because he was going to keep discussing it. What a weakling, okay? It's dangerous because of the misinformation that surrounds the issue. If you can't understand that, you can't have this conversation, right? It's as simple as that. Okay, there's many other ways to get to the point. Okay. Ja? Ja? You there, bro? Yo! Right, no, so it's not about silencing free speech, right? This is how I know a lot of you are like, you're not able to reason critically. Think like about the next step of the consequences of what you're gonna do and what you're gonna say. This is a part of the reason why you have low impulse control and are using drugs in the first place, because you're not able to foresee things in the future, right? There's nothing against you. I was just like that too. But if you don't understand what I'm saying, it's as simple as this, right? We have this conversation in the same way when we start talking about religion, right? There is somebody right now that's on their deathbed or they've just been diagnosed with a terminal illness, right? To them, they are searching for all the answers and all the possible ways to get better. Now, there is a traditional way to do it. You go down the medical route, you listen to what the doctors say, you go to chemotherapy, etc. Whatever the type of cancer you're dealing with, you deal with that, right? But there are people who look for what's called homeopathic remedies or home remedies or spiritual remedies, okay? Those things, the extra search, the extracurricular search, although it's valid, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's effective too, right? I'm not dismissing that, okay? But the extracurricular things can also lead people to deaths unnecessarily. There are lots of people that would be here today if they had just gone the medical route and seen through the treatment, okay, rather than searching for alternatives like some Dr. Sebi nonsense or some weed nonsense or some, ayahuasca nonsense, right? I'm not saying that there aren't natural cures out there, but why it's dangerous in terms of what we're talking about on the internet. People tend to forget it's not just adults that get cancer. Children get cancer too, right? When you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness, right, you are extremely vulnerable psychologically. So if someone is saying misinformation in a way that makes you feel like this is true, this is right, and you go and pursue that instead of what you're supposed to be doing for your health, any conscious person would know that's the wrong thing to do. Okay? Not saying that there aren't natural remedies out there, but there isn't enough data to suggest that there is a good link between weed and curing cancer. The only link between weed and cancer currently is people who manage nausea while going through, key words here, chemotherapy treatment. So people who are being treated properly, okay? So the idiots that you listen to on the internet, they need to be able to cite the sources and look at this stuff correctly. But that being said, okay, we're not going to talk about cancer from this point on. If anyone does decide to come up and start talking about cancer, you can almost guarantee that they're looking for a way out of the debate because they can't cope. So those are the rules, and they're not many in this space. If you don't like them, don't come up, okay? So just try and have some respect.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yo, how you doing? I can hear you.
Perfect. So your claim, smoking should be banned.
Sure. So is that the subject you want to talk about?
That is, can you clarify? Do you mean banned in public? Do you mean banned in general? Do you mean illegal?
So yeah, we'll get to that.
What do you mean by that?
We'll get to that. So there's a few questions that you
I'm
need
not
to...
answering those questions.
Okay, so thanks for coming up then.
Wait.
Don't play by the rules, don't play the game. You don't run the show, I run the show. Don't come up. You're not that guy, buddy. I say it respectfully, right? You're not that guy, okay? Everyone else was respectful and they answered if they wanted to. But you had a choice, but you're not that guy, okay? What's up, Karma? How you doing, bro?
What's good, bro? What's good? Nice to meet you. You feel me? Nice to be on the
Nice
live and stuff. I was going to answer your question. You said before what time did I start? Like I was watching before, so What time did I start smoking? Right, that was one of your
No,
questions.
don't worry, I'll ask you them, bro. Don't worry, right? So you want to talk
I
about
didn't. You feel
banning
me? The
smoking,
other
yeah?
guy got kicked off. So.
Oh, you got
Yeah,
dropped.
you're smoking. Yeah, smoking should be banned. Huh?
You got dropped.
No. The other guy, because he didn't answer the question, so I just wanted to answer so we could get
Oh
quick
no,
into
don't
the
yeah,
debate.
look, don't worry about that. All right, we'll get there. Right, like just as a setting, anyone who's listening, I try to keep the next conversation separate from the last conversation. Okay, so I want to treat you like your own person, and the last conversation has nothing to do with you. As hard as it is, right? We're in a fresh conversation. You're a new person, and there's no forget about the past. Okay, so you want to talk about the smoking being banned? A couple of questions I ask everybody. Right, that you don't have to answer these questions, but there's a respectful way to decline. Okay. First question is: have you ever worked in or around the tobacco industry, tobacco or cannabis industries?
No, I have not.
Thanks for being honest, right? The second question is: have you ever used either of those substances?
Yes.
Do you mind sharing what age you started using those substances?
I don't want to say the age, but I did started using fairly young. I would say like high school, like around high school. Yeah.
Cool. Have you ever tried to give up, or have you ever taken like a tolerance break?
I've done like tolerance breaks. I'm a smoker. Like I really do smoke. I smoke a lot.
So it's-
I have taken tolerance breaks, like year tolerance break. But I haven't really tried to quit per se. It was never really like a thing in my mind to be like, oh, I'm gonna quit.
okay, cool. So now the floor is yours. Any point you want to raise there. So.
I just wanted to know if you feel like smoking, like what the last guy said. Do you feel like smoking should be banned, like all the way around, like in general, or should it be like in public or like in private? Like, what is your take on it? For like smoking should be banned?
So I have an idealistic view that smoking should be banned across the board, but I'm more realistic or pragmatic with the view. It's impossible to ban smoking in its entirety. Okay, it's just
Okay.
you can't possibly police that. You can right. Or let's be honest, you could if you socially engineer it out of society. So there are various different strategies to do that, which we haven't even touched on this whole stream. But there are ways to do it. But if you're asking me in the context or the small context of what we're saying here, yes, I want smoking to be banned publicly. Like
You feel like
no
the
smoking at
action,
all.
like the action of smoking, just the action of smoking in general.
Yeah, like smoking in public or smoking in your house, smoking anywhere should be banned. Yeah,
Okay, why do you feel like that? Why do you feel like it should be banned?
because the cons outweigh the pros.
Okay, can you give me cons and pros?
Yeah, so smoking damages the respiratory system in the case of tobacco. It also messes you up economically. It also makes you chemically dependent. Things like becoming irritable, like mood swings, etc., decision making. When you
Okay.
add in things like cannabis, that also plays into like psychological issues like psychosis and things like that. Also developmental issues like in terms of how your physical brain develops. So yeah, there's some of the cons, right? But it primarily targets children because it's like a predatory product and who sells it.
Yeah, they do make
and who
things
consumes it.
very like colorful and like eye catching to children and to kids. They do that.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's not just the packaging of it; it's the societal kind of
Connotation.
it's like the normative to what is cool, what is considered cool, and what is not cool. Okay? Culturally, it's designed to target kids.
Also, wait,
but
my
anyway,
bad
like,
to cut
I
you
went
off.
off on a tangent, right? They are some of the cons that outweigh the pros.
Okay. My fault for cutting you off, but I was gonna ask you do you feel the same way about like any other substances like alcohol and because that's I just want to pick your brain. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel the same way about alcohol and stuff like that?
Yeah, but I just don't have as much information about the damage that alcohol does as I do for smoking yet.
Okay. Okay, personally for like respiratory stuff like that, I do believe smoking in general is automatically going to do that because you're inhaling something and you're putting heat to your lungs. The smoke is putting heat to your lungs is gonna cause some type of issue to your
it's
lungs.
scarring.
And tar gets in your lungs as well from you smoking. So
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of the day, smoking is something that should be banned.
There you go.
It shouldn't be something that is like legal. It's not something that people should be using constantly. It's not a constant thing that you should be using every day.
It's not a necessary thing in any way.
Yeah. I
It's absolutely
personally
not
feel like
necessary.
at the end of the day, we all do things to get like we all do things to get satisfaction, even though there might be risks to the thing that we're doing. Like
Agreed.
even when you work out, you're working out, you're literally destroying your muscles, pushing yourself to the brink, even though you know that you can also be hurting yourself. But it's also other things like people who take pre-workout, and you take too much pre-workout and you go crazy, and you like some people have passed out. I've had friends who took in too much pre-workout, and they literally get there sitting there with the jitters.
Yes,
There's
this
just
is true.
there's stuff that we take too far as humans. Like we want to indulge in it and we take it too far. So I don't feel like it should be banned per se, because there are vices that humans have other than just smoking, you
Yeah,
know.
I agree.
So
There
I
are
feel like
plenty,
at
there are
the end of
plenty
the
of
day,
bad
to
things in the
pick
world, but you should
to
be
pick
you
and
should be thinking about minimizing the amount of bad things in the world.
yeah, of
If
course
you
you should be
if
thinking
you
about
take on the
minimizing them.
responsibility for that.
Of course, you take on the responsibility of minimizing. So I do feel like banned in general. I don't feel like it should be banned all the way around, but I do, like you had also had said that you feel like you have a pragmatic, realistic view on it, where you don't feel like it should always like be banned all the way around, or like it's not going to be as easy. You want it to be banned all the way around,
Well,
but you know that's not like it's
look,
not a full possibility, you
so
know, because you
look,
can't
let me
control everybody.
at this point in the conversation, I think it's important that I say this because I haven't said it in a while. Right? When I say banning, right, it's banning and regulation go hand in hand. Regulation is a part of banning, right? So what I'm going to quickly just run through is a type of strategy of the type of banning that I'm talking about, so people have a better understanding of what I mean when I say ban. Okay, so how would you actually ban smoking? Okay, so the first thing is you keep it illegal but you decriminalize it. So this is in more concerns with people who smoke cannabis, but it will also pertain to tobacco if what is going to happen actually plays out, right? So the first thing you do is you make it illegal but you decriminalize it. So the people who abuse the substance or use the substance, with all due respect, they don't end up going through the system and have other bad outcomes. Instead of criminalizing them, sending them to jail, etc., you can issue them fines or mandatory education, depending on the severity and the type of distribution and all those kinds of things. The next thing is the market regulation. You attack the actual production of it, right? So cannabis is geared to become tobacco 2.0, so this applies to cannabis too. So one of the regulatory policies would be to make it so tobacco industries reduce the nicotine quality by 90%, which allows for people to keep the view of their bodily autonomy and their right to use. This is adults, of course, with consenting adults. It would allow them to keep their bodily autonomy and the right to use, but it'd make it a lot easier for them to get off the substance because the addictive quality or quantity is much lower. So it's two parts, right? So you decriminalize and you regulate the substance. The next part is you bring in a piece of legislation like the Ash Act, which is supposed to come into play in 2027. What this does is it attacks the market and it safeguards future generations. How the Ash Act will work is that nobody born after the year 2009 will be able to purchase tobacco products legally ever again, because the age goes up every year from then on. Now, that alone isn't good enough, but that actually puts in like a stable set of principles to, one, deal with the actual commercialized production of the product and the sale of the product and the legal consumption of the products. You've got parameters there. Then the next thing you do, you need to subsidize what's called smoking cessation services. Smoking cessation literally just means help stopping smoking, whether you're doing hard drugs or just smoking a cigarette or drinking. Okay, why does it need to be subsidized? Because it needs to be free, available, and in your face, right? So in the UK we have a system called NHS, National Health Services, right? But they partly subsidize smoking cessation products, right? Things like chewing gums, patches, other intravenous medicines, etc. And the same could be said for people who are using like heroin and crack. They will provide them with controlled substances to help them get off the street level substance. So the first was decriminalize, the second was regulate the production, the third was bring in a piece of legislation, and the fourth was subsidizing smoking cessation. But the fifth and the most important part, if you really want to see a ban actually happen, not just by a tyrannical or authoritarian, you must stop doing this, is we must socially engineer it out of society by doing things like what we're doing right now, having an open discourse about it, saying, look, this is what's on the table, these are the case studies, these are the victims, these are the primary audiences, and who's making the money from this all, right? You socially engineer it. You remove the captured neoliberal coolness from smoking, right? Because it was put there via propaganda and psychological warfare initially anyway. Right? So that's how you would ban it. Okay, so ideally it'd be regulated and phased out psychologically from society. An example of this, I know I'm yapping now, but an example of this is when I was a child, adults could smoke anywhere they wanted, on buses, in shops, in the town hall, in the shopping mall, right? Smoking was everywhere. Okay. By the time I reached to like high school, it was legislated so you could only smoke in designated spots. By the time I graduated high school, the cigarette packaging had changed and the tax price had gone up. So that's real world change in one person's lifetime. So it's possible that the next 2 or 3 generations could live in a world where tobacco products or cannabis products aren't even a thing. That's how it would be banned, right? There's levels to it. But now I've yapped for so long, Karma.
Okay.
Please, the rest is yours.
Okay, thank you. But I do believe that you aren't a person that is just like smoking should be banned, and you have a very like that's why I wanted to prick your brain, because you have a very like actual realistic vision for smoking to like be decreased or minimized. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I don't have any qualms with what you're saying, because you're right. I believe anybody who comes up here and tells you that you're wrong is just being biased. So
Well, I'm biased too, right? So there's that.
I mean, you're biased too, but it's not for a reason like, oh yeah, I don't like people that smoke, or I don't, you know.
No,
It's
I
more
don't like you. I'll just play it right now. Just play it.
like it's not for a reason that, you know, people shouldn't be smoking. We feel like people are just being lazy by being smoking, because some smokers there's some hardworking smokers. I know people who work in warehouses. I know fighters, because I box and shit. I know fighters.
Have
who
we spoke
they could-
before?
Huh?
Have we spoke before? And I talked to you about not promoting smoking as a sportsman.
No, never.
You sure?
Never. I just found your live. I literally clicked on
cool.
live, and yours was the first one that popped up.
Cool. Nah, carry on.
But I know fighters that smoke. They could be out of training for mad long, come back in, and they could last rounds with people who've been training. You know. So, and it's real. I've seen it before, and I'm low key that type of person too.
You
I could
think-
come and smoke and go do a session and come back. Oh, I smoke and I work out. You know. So
You think,
I
right?
do-
But remember, there's always a Floyd Mayweather somewhere that's not doing that.
Nah, of course. There's always a Floyd
You think-
Mayweather or somewhere that's not doing those stuff. Of course, that is true. But that does not take away from the accomplishments that these people are getting, that these people are doing. You know, at the end of the day, they may not be the top of the top, but they're making it to the top of the top
Right,
while
But there's
using
a
these substances as
Look,
well.
look.
I'm not saying it as like a
No.
thing
but
for
look,
my
that,
argument.
that's
'cause
that's problematic, right? Because you're making like these exceptions are the rule. They're not, right?
they're not the rule. I'm
Not
not.
even close.
I'm not. They're not the rule at all. I'm not saying that they are the rule, but they are.
Many
exceptions.
sportsmen have fell off because of drugs and alcohol. Right?
Many
people that
many
could have been
sportsmen have
footballers.
fell off because of drugs and
basketball,
alcohol. There are
any-
many
you name 'em,
champions
right?
right now. There are many champions right now who
But-
do smoke
but-
and drink
but-
alcohol.
but you
they
have to
don't-
remember-
But they don't do it during camp. They just
Con-
don't do it during
Yes,
camp.
but exactly. But context is also important here, right? There's the view that you could like watch a Joe Rogan podcast and see a bunch of millionaires sat at a table just smoking weed, and it's all like, look, they're all rich, they're successful. But
No, I'm not talking about
on the way to
Elon
becoming.
or
No,
talking
I'm
about,
just saying.
like,
I'm
I
saying
can
in
give you an actual
general.
one, like Justin
Listen,
Gaethje,
I'm saying
like,
in
there's
general.
actual-
I'm saying in general, like, try to understand what I mean. I know, for me, Mike Tyson is the greatest boxer of all time. Mad drugs, right? So I understand what you're saying, but what I'm also trying to explain to you is you see the final product. You're comparing, like, you're comparing your day one with their day 100. That is what you're seeing when you see these athletes at that level. Because for every one athlete that made it, there's probably 1,000 that didn't. Okay, so the example that you're making is fallacious in this way. It'd be like saying smoking is okay to do because 1 in 10 people survive doing it. An analogy would be somebody during September 11th, shouldn't have said that, jumped off a building on the 13th floor and they survived. you're saying anyone that jumps off the 13th floor can potentially survive, and he likely will survive because she did. Okay.
Okay. I
In the
understand,
same
I
way, you're
understand.
saying that the
I
athlete.
understand. I
No,
understand
but
what you're trying to.
the same way
I
you're
understand
saying
what you're
the
trying.
athlete,
Hold
the
on.
athlete who got a lottery ticket to be one of the winners, to be an Olympian, to be a boxer, to be whatever, he got a systemic lottery ticket plus a genetic lottery ticket. He is analogous to the woman that survives jumping off the 13th floor. Okay?
Seth,
He
I
is the
understand.
exception,
Seth,
not
I
the
understand.
rule.
Wait,
Okay,
Seth, I understand what you're trying to say. I'm
so
not disagreeing with you, brother.
so
I
you
do.
shouldn't
You're
so you
right.
shouldn't make it
I
appear
do.
like it's cool and it's possible to do because
I am,
it's
but
not.
every time I keep talking and I'm going on long enough, you cut me off.
I'm
So
sorry.
I didn't
No,
cut
it's
you off. I didn't cut you off. I'm
you're,
not saying it
you're right.
disrespectfully.
You're absolutely
I'm
right.
not
But
saying it disrespectfully, but
I'm sensitive because there are kids listening and they'll be like,
no, I'm not
but
making it like
he said
I
I
was
could be
just
a boxer and
prefacing.
smoke weed, right? Like, no, you can't. You can't be. You
It's
can't be
not.
a good one.
That's not a false statement. That is not a false statement.
Right? No,
That's not a false
but
statement.
no,
You can be a boxer and smoke weed. That's not a
no,
false
no,
statement.
but no, you can't. Though this is what I'm saying. You're creating the exception is the rule by saying that. You're making a mistake. Okay.
But you can. It's
No.
possible.
Yes.
It's possible.
You
It's
are
possible.
right. You're right in the most technical way possible. Yes, there are technically people who are successful athletes, successful. There are even people who fly planes who do heroin. This is true. But do you think that is the standard for what it means to be able to fly a plane? No. Do you think that is the standard for what it means to be a sportsman?
That was not.
No.
That,
So
I
you
never.
so
I
you should
said
never
that.
represent it like that because you like you sully what it means to represent that thing. Right? You reduce it.
How?
Yeah.
I guess if that's how you feel, then okay. I guess.
It's true. You do. It's like for instance, we think societally, we think about lawyers, judges, doctors, policemen, all these kinds of people as like they hold a certain place in society in terms of how we view them, veterans, etc. But we also, when we interact with them beyond their job title, we realize they're just humans. They have flaws. They do good things. They do bad things. That's fine, right? But there's a reason that they're put on a certain pedestal at that place. It's because the responsibility that is afforded to them, or that they assume by taking that role. So you have to keep that in mind.
I'm keeping it in mind. I just wasn't. I never was able to get to a point where I was even able to
I'm
make
sorry.
the
I'm sorry.
distinction.
I'm totally sorry. Like, I just,
I
it's
was
just that
yeah.
it's like I don't want a kid to hear that thing. Yeah, like I'm definitely gonna make it into like Premier League if I just blazing zoot right now. Like, no, you're not. You're not the exception. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's not
You're
an exception.
not
There's
the
certain
exception.
people who are just there's certain people who are just different than others. They can, and some people can't. That's just what it is.
Right. Anyways, please. Like,
It's true.
carry on
It's
with
true.
the point
Some
you
can,
wanted
some
to
can, and
make.
some
Right?
can't. It's not for everybody.
It's not for anybody. Right? Those people are making a mistake. Okay? But you're justifying their mistake. You're justifying their
How are
mistake
they
in this.
making it? How are they making
I'll
a
explain why.
mistake if
Because
they're using?
you're
That's like
justifying their
saying,
mistake.
That's like saying people. Wait, hold on.
Bro, you're
I
justifying their
hold on.
mistake with the success they've made in another arena. The success at being a great fighter has little to do with them using drugs. But you're saying being able to use drugs, sorry, you're equating doing drugs with being a good fighter. Bullshit. Being a good fighter is its own skill.
I'm not equating it with being a good
Right.
fighter because that's like saying if you smoke
That's what
weed,
I'm
you're going to be a
explaining to
good
you.
fighter.
But
That's
no
like saying
right. So when we say things, when we're just speaking, there are implicit things that we point to without having to say it explicitly. So when we have a conversation about like there's this John Jones did mad coke, but he's one of the best, right? We make it seem as if this and that are the same. No, John Jones's skill in being able to fight and rising through the ranks has lots more to do with his own personal life, Dana White, his training camp, than it does with him using coke. But now you put the coke with his fighting on the same level as if this informs that, when it doesn't. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. It doesn't. It's like saying, Elon Musk is a millionaire because he smokes weed.
I understand. I never made
No,
a
he's
point that
not.
was saying that just because a person does the drugs,
It's like a
doesn't
halo
mean that they're a
effect.
good fighter, or that it gives them a pass for using the drugs since they are a good fighter. They made it to a high standpoint.
No,
I'm not
it's
saying
implied.
that.
It's
I'm not saying
implied.
that.
It's implied
I
by
understand. I understand
referencing
that you're
it.
saying that it's implied. It's implied. But I never got, like I said before, I never got
That's
to a point
that's why I'm pulling you up about
where
it. That's why I keep
That's what I'm
pulling you
saying.
up about it.
That's what I'm
'Cause it's
saying. You can't
implied.
really-
Right?
It's implied, but there was never a chance for me to even get to a point where I can like get the distinction off.
All right.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
All right. Just be careful, man. Just remember the
I do
responsibility.
understand. Like, of course, you feel me. There's there's certain stuff that you have to be mindful of course. But if I can't get to the point where I can be mindful of it and
Look,
say it,
look
then-
at Adrian Broner right now, bro.
yeah, Adrian Broner was abusing alcohol
Alright.
when he was in the ring.
All right.
But Adrian Broner, before he was in the ring, was already having problems outside of him using alcohol.
Yeah, nearly every great fighter has had problems, my guy. But this
Yeah,
I'm trying to explain to you.
great-
When we talk about their boxing
You're
skill,
trying- okay, you're
their
saying- you're saying every
sportsmanship,
great-
we
you're saying
don't bring
every
up their
great
drug
fighter has
habits.
okay, you're saying every great fighter has had problems. One, I'm gonna be honest with you, that is not true.
All right, so
That
name,
is
name
not
me a
true.
great fighter that hasn't had any problems.
You ever heard about the kid that does BJJ? He looks like a nerd, and everybody thinks he looks like a nerd, but he's actually a
No.
master BJJ artist.
No, it sounds like an AI fucking YouTube
It's
ad.
not. It's not an AI. It's
Who
not
is
an
he?
AI. I think he's all over TikTok. He's also
no,
sparred
like-
with Demetrius Johnson.
Maybe.
Demetrius Johnson hasn't done. Demetrius Johnson is Mighty Mouse.
I know. He's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, and
I
he's
know.
a good person, and he's a cool person. Never has any
But-
problems. He has a.
But the point was, a fighter that doesn't have issues. Like there is no fighter that doesn't have some issues.
Yeah, there's.
But you
fighters
said
that
there
have-
is.
Yeah, they have issues. Of course, they have issues. Like mentally, that doesn't make them. That doesn't make it like they put it outside on other people. There's fighters you can have issues mentally, but not put it out on other people. What are we talking about?
Right. So the point was right that there's I said right, which might not be true. Obviously, right. It's just like a rhetoric point. That I said there isn't a fighter that doesn't have some problems. Right? That was kind of what I said, and you said no. There's this nerdy guy that does BJJ and he's perfect. Like I was saying no.
I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm saying he's a good person. He's a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he's like.
This
he's
is
a actually-
subjective. This is
It's not
subjective.
subjective. He's a humble person.
Alright, so-
he's a cool person. He actually goes out and does stuff for
Yeah.
community. Like he's an actual
Bro,
good person in
You
real
you
life.
might
in
be
real
right.
life.
You might be right about the good things about him. In the same way, someone could say, "Look, Muhammad Ali's the greatest boxer of all time. Look at all these cool things he said." But then someone could turn around and say, "But Muhammad Ali was associated with this Muslim cult that thought all white people were devils, right?" Like there is something for everyone, right? There is like
Yeah,
he was
there
a
is
draft
something
dodger. Like there is something for everyone.
Not
Okay.
everybody's perfect. But that's like
the
saying,
point.
every fighter has issues because they're doing fighting, or because they go into fighting because they have issues.
Right,
not
that's the
true.
point.
That's not true.
That's the point, right? That is the
But
point
that,
I was
but
trying
that
to
isn't
say.
true. What you're trying to say, that isn't true. I'm
Right,
telling
so-
you that is not true.
I say that because of what I said previously. Their boxing skill, right, just in terms of fighting, has nothing to do with their drug abuse, right? A lot of the time, the boxing skill is developed independently of the issues that bring them to the drugs. Okay, it's when you see.
Wait, say that again. Say that again. I
So,
want you to
right.
repeat that again.
So
Repeat it again.
when you see one boxer, right, who has a name, right, an Anthony Joshua, a Tyson Fury, whoever, they are one in a million, right? To be on that level, that stage of platform, at that level of sportsmanship, is elite. Now, of the handful that we can name names of over the years, right? Various of them will have issues, and some of them won't have obvious issues. But the fact that they're in that elite category already means that they're not the standard. So they shouldn't be looked at as the standard. So if John Jones can stay holding a championship title for X amount of years, do all of this crazy shit, it doesn't mean it's possible for you to do that. He's already elite in terms of his skill level and in terms of his promotion and where he exists in his stratosphere. He's not the first guy going to his first MMA camp and saying, "Yeah, I'm just gonna smoke some weed before I do some BJJ." He's not Joe Rogan, right? He's not George St. Pierre, whatever. He's not that yet. You need to become that first to then have some right to say, "Look, I've done my work. Now I can indulge." But you're saying it's okay to indulge whilst becoming, right? And it's not. It's going to deter you from becoming. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, I can understand what you mean by that. It's gonna deter you from becoming who you want to be, or who you feel like your end goal is going to be. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying right? What I'm saying is that there
What's
are
up, Lou?
fighters who they don't have to be elite. They don't have to be elite level as well. There are also fighters who have done who literally they're okay. I could explain the best way like this. There are boxers who are on an elite level, same level as the boxers who are in pros. They just never got the promotion to be able to get into pros.
I agree.
That's how that works. I'm
I
actually
know.
telling you how it works.
Fam, I know
There-
it's like that in every industry. Right?
No, it's not.
Yes, it
Boxing
is.
Not like in every industry.
Yes,
No,
it
it's not.
is. In terms
No,
of
it's
who,
not.
listen to what I'm
No,
saying.
it's
In
not.
terms of
No,
who,
it's not.
in
If you're
terms
in
of
boxing,
who
you
gets
literally-
selected,
boxing, when
listen,
you, when you,
brother.
when you,
In terms of
in
who
boxing,
gets
you-
selected for a promotion, right? Who gets spotlighted? It's like that in every industry. Of course, it changes
No,
based
it's
on.
not.
Yes,
No,
it
it's
is.
not. I'm telling
From
you- I'm
music
telling you
to
right now, no, it's
movies
not.
to corporate
It's not
to
the same
boxing
thing.
to football.
It's
Who
not the
gets
same
picked
thing. Would
is
you
the
like me to
same.
explain it to you? I actually box. Would you like me to
Sure,
explain it to you?
sure. Please do. Right?
Okay, I can explain it to you right now. The way you get onto these cards where you get promoted, right? I'm gonna tell you right now. These promotions, they come to your fights, right? You see how people come to the basketball
It's called
fights?
scouting,
They come
yeah.
to your fights, and actually, after they watch all the cards, they watch all the cards. After they watch all the cards, they have to go to your coach, right? When they go to your coach, they
Yeah.
ask your coach if they can
Bro,
sponsor you through
fam,
the gloves and
you
gear
aren't
that you
telling
wear.
me anything
'Cause it's
I
not
don't
actual
know.
sponsorship. It's not actual
Fam,
sponsorship.
But you know,
through-
right? Listen, but you know what else can happen, fam. But listen. Do you know what else can happen? Do you know what else can happen, Karma?
Your
Right?
gloves, your gear.
Karma,
Like if they're
listen.
rocking Untitled
Karma,
or like
listen.
you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, because you're not saying anything important. It's called scouting. That's how business works, right? You could also be born into
It's
a family.
scouting, but it's a different
You
process.
could
It's not
also
the same
be born
process to
into
every
a
other
listen,
sport.
bro. You could also be born into a family with a legacy name like Mayweather or De La Hoya, etc. Right? The ways in which people get spotlighted and promoted and put in position is the same in every industry. That's all I'm trying to explain to you. Yes, I know boxing is specific to what we're talking about, but it literally has nothing to do with the overarching conversation about drug abuse and sportsmanship.
So
Right?
so this whole time, okay. So we've got off track, and then you're telling me we got off track when you okay. All right, brother. All right.
Like,
You know
bro.
what? Have a good day. I still agree with you. I still agree that smoking shouldn't be, banned and stuff. It's just that I feel like we've gotten off
Alright,
topic.
We did, but it's important that we got there because look, I understand what you're trying to say. Opportunities aren't afforded like equally. They're not like democratically given out. Even look, I'm well aware that in some industries you could be better than the next guy, but if you don't shake the right hands at the right time and smile at the right time, you don't get the opportunity. You could be the best. It happens in different industries all the time. That's all I was trying to express. It could just be that you're born into the right family. It could just be that you know the right guy. It could just be that you threw a fight for a mafia boss one time, right? It could be a number of things, but not everyone gets the job. That's all I'm trying to explain. Okay,
That is true. Not
for
everyone gets the
right.
job, but you can't make the distinction from it being with weed. If these elite fighters have also gotten to those places with doing that as well.
They're the exception, but this is what I'm trying to explain
But
to you.
they're not-
You keep
but they're not
using
the
them
exception
as
'cause
the
there are other
rule.
fighters who don't get promoted as much as are on the same skill level. So if it's not about, if it's not about,
care.
okay, this is what I'm saying. If it's not about going based off a skill level and you can't use promotion because like you said, sometimes it's just you're born into the right family. Sometimes you just shake the right hand. Sometimes you get, so you can't base it off the promotion. You have to base it off the skill level. That's what I'm trying to say. If you can get to that elite
Yes,
level,
that'd be great.
all it takes
You
is
don't-
training and
You
dedication.
don't, bro. You
and-
don't
and-
live in a
and to-
meritocracy. Okay, that's not actually. That's the idealized version. It's not a reality. But in terms of what
It
we're
is a
talking
reality.
about,
Everybody has the strength to be in boxing. Everybody has the strength to be able to go to an elite level. All you have to do is train. If you dedicate yourself to the training,
Right,
and you can
that's good
actually get
advice.
to a level where you
Bro.
can go and you can't.
yes,
like,
fam.
what are we
That's
talking
that
about?
is that's good advice and that's a good mindset, right? It's very reminiscent of Naruto's mindset. Yeah, like yes, like just throw yourself
It's
at
not,
the wall.
it's not reminiscent
Throw
of
yourself at the
Naruto's
wall
mindset because
until you
everybody in
succeed. Yeah,
boxing-
okay, right.
Everybody in the
But
world has. Everybody in the world has speed. You don't need speed for boxing. All you need to do is not telegraph your punches. Everybody has knockout power.
Bro,
So if you
you-
train
you're-
yourself, you'll be able to get there. If you absorb knowledge,
Cuz-
you'll be able to get there. You can do that for literally
yes,
anything.
that's a good
why it's called
mindset.
learning.
No, right. That's called skill set. That's actually called skill acquired. Anyways, right. You're correct. But what the point is, why we're even talking about sport in this way, is that you are equating people's drug abuse in sport with their success in sport. And I'm saying to you, their success in sport has nothing to do with their drug abuse. They so happen to be in the elite hand-picked people that are in the screen already, and they so happen to be drug addicts also. But the drug addiction is not relative to the success in the sport.
Yes, their drug intake is not relative to their success. The only way that it is partially relative to their success if they are over abusing the substance that they're using, because there are elite, that's what I'm trying to say, there are elite fighters who don't overuse the substance, who know how to use the substance recreationally and still perform at an elite level while using the substance that other fighters are using, that other fighters are abusing, but they're using it recreationally. Like, they're using it in a sense where they're not using it all the time. They're using it to wind down on off seasons, or on when they go into camp, they detox, then they start draining weight so they can drain weight. You know, there's fighters who use weed so they actually can be able to drain weight. So it doesn't make them as it doesn't want them to like always want to, like, it drains their body, because using weed drains your body. Like, it drains the you get low on blood sugar, you get dehydrated. So they're trying to dehydrate their body as much as possible. That's what you do when you drop weight.
Bro, I know about this stuff, okay? No disrespect. It's interesting.
It's no disrespect.
Right?
It's no disrespect to you. You probably do know about this stuff. The same thing that you're talking about, that I'm talking about, is I'm trying to explain to you. We're having a conversation, so I'm saying them. You know?
Cool. That's cool, right? But can you yeah, host is actively typing on Google something important, right, which I may or may not say, okay? But can you at least agree, right, that as adults, I'm assuming you're old enough to be considered an adult, that we
Yes.
shouldn't actively promote drug consumption with sportsmanship?
We shouldn't promote it with sportsmanship. There's no reason to promote it with sportsmanship, right? But at the end of the day, there are humans that are going to be able to, there are humans that are going to use it regardless, even if they get to the high level. And they can do it while getting to that high level. It's just
my
the only exception with people who don't make it to that high level and they're also using these substances is that they over abuse these substances.
You haven't got the data to be able to say that, okay? Remember,
You can see
the people
that's
that
like
you
comparing,
see.
that's like comparing
Oh,
Adrian
gosh.
Broner, who literally drinks till he throws up in his cup. Who
Yes,
literally
I
drinks till
know.
he throws up in
I
his
know.
cup, to
I know.
Cejudo, a UFC fighter who actually drinks all the goddamn time, but he does not drink during camp.
This is what's wrong with your brain. You cannot see that you keep picking these exceptions and ignoring all of the failures, all right? There are for every
not
for every
picking
one
exceptions and
brother,
ignoring
listen.
failures.
For every
It's
one
actually
athlete
knowing how to
you
use
know.
these substances
No, it isn't.
recreationally.
No, it isn't. For every one athlete you know, there are thousands which you do not know. Right? The fact that you know that individual person already means they're at a certain level. So using them as the standard is wrong. They're the exception. It'd be like saying anyone could be Michael Jackson. Anyone could be Jay-Z. No, they can't. Okay? Jay-Z is Jay-Z. Michael Jackson is Michael Jackson. Muhammad Ali is Muhammad Ali. Okay? You are you and I am me. Right, so these people are the exceptions, not the standard. When you go into the boxing club for your first time, they don't tie your gloves and say, "All right, welcome, Muhammad Ali, welcome, Golden Gloves chap." Right? Maybe that to motivate you and inspire you, of course. But they know you have to learn the standard. You have to learn the basics first and move your way up. So
Yes, you learn the basics
right.
first and you move your
So-
way up.
So you
but it's
don't
not
come
saying-
in. You
but
don't
it's
come
not
in saying,
that
"Hey,
these-
but boss, I saw Mike Tyson sniffing coke on his night before his fight, so I'm gonna do it." Your coach is gonna be like, "All right, dickhead, you think you're Mike Tyson? Go on then, all right? Figure it out." That's what your coach is gonna say to you because
Yeah, of course
you're
your coach is
not.
gonna say to you, "Oh, I'm gonna go sniff some coke
Right.
the night before my fight, and I'm gonna try and fight like Mike Tyson." He's gonna look at you and be like, listen,
Okay.
Mike wasn't sniffing coke during his fights. Mike was sniffing coke after his fights." And
No, he
and
isn't.
before camp.
Any decent coach is gonna dissuade you from using substances while being
He
a
is gonna dissuade you.
sportsman.
Of course, he's gonna dissuade you
Any
from using substances.
fucking
Of course
coach
he
worth
is.
their weight,
Of course he is.
they would
Yes,
never.
of course
They would
every
never.
coach is gonna. If every coach is gonna try and move you away from using the substances, of course that is true. But don't you not think that these coaches and these boxers,
This
when
is
they
such
go
a
on
bad
off
argument.
season, but what I'm saying is that when they go on off season or when they go do so, you think they're not gonna be drinking? You think they're not gonna be smoking? You think they're not gonna be?
Not
You
all,
know,
right?
that's
But
what
they
I'm trying
don't.
to
Right.
say.
So this
You
comes
can-
back to what we're talking about as the overarching topic, right? Why are they orientated to smoke and drink in the first place when they don't have to? We shouldn't, right? So look, I know,
Why are they
right? So
because they
listen,
because
listen,
that's
brother,
like saying,
listen.
oh, why does
During the
somebody
90s, right?
want to wind down? Why does
No,
somebody
look,
want to
let
some
me
people just want to smoke to have
fam,
fun and
let me
smoke to wind
explain
down.
what I'm trying to
Why is
explain to
that?
you.
Why is that a problem?
Because it's killing you, right? What do you mean?
There's many other things that are killing you on this planet.
So
What
what?
are we talking about?
We're talking about smoking. We're talking about drug abuse. That's what we're talking about.
Yes, we're talking about drug abuse. As you
Like,
said, drug
subtract, right?
abuse. You're
So
abusing the drug.
hear
As
what
in
I'm
you're
trying to say to you.
abusing it.
Hear what I'm trying to say to you, right? Previously, in the past, right, when they developed the idea of Olympians, right, and the Olympics and sportsmanship became something that was a standard. Right, so there's lots of psychology into this. Basically, sports became legal warfare for humans, and this is how we funneled our politics, our money, and our entertainment for the masses. It was called bread and circus before, with gladiators and all that kind of stuff. Lots of beautiful history, lots of interesting information. But it was around the 80s and the 90s where sports became hyper commercialized and a camera started to get stuck in the sportsmen's faces all the time. This is when they had to start learning media literacy and training about what they can say, what they can't say, how it affects sponsorships and brandings, etc. Right? This is when the big switch happened. The idea that you can see a sportsman, know his name, know things about him, is relatively new in human history. So you knowing that this sportsman exists and he does this bad shit and this good shit has nothing to do with his skill in the sport. Okay? The skill
Okay.
in the sport is what is what you're supposed to know him for. But now that you're able to know things about his life, you now think it correlates. Oh, like remember, like Michael Jordan, it must be the shoes. No, nigga, it was the various hours of practice. Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You can anybody else will be able to do if you're
No,
doing
it's
the various amount of
no,
practices
they
that Michael-
can't. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
No, they
can.
can't,
The
or else they
only
would be
difference- the
Michael
only difference- the only
Jordan.
difference
Okay.
the only difference between pro boxers
my God.
and regular average people is that these average people don't know the skills that these pro boxers
It's not
do.
simply
That's
just the skills. They're already handpicked.
no, yes, it is. It's the skill and the experience.
That's
what
a
are you
part.
talking
Oh my
about?
gosh. All
are
right.
you
So
talking
how
about?
how many good coaches exist that could literally beat the shit out of their own boxers?
There are. What are you talking
Plenty.
about? Because the model was literally on an interview with Muhammad Ali.
Yes, I know,
Muhammad Ali
right?
said,
But
"Oh, you want me to
Customaro
show you how to stop?"
bro, Customaro couldn't beat Muhammad Ali. He was a friend. Okay, let's be honest here. Right?
He
He
could
was
not
just a
beat
friend.
Muhammad
Right?
Ali, but he actually showed him
Yeah,
how
the
to stop
peekaboo
one of
style.
his
I know,
skill
right?
points that
I know.
everybody else in pro.
I know.
In
I know,
Bro, you're not
bro.
even
I
letting
know
me
the
talk,
history.
brother. I can't even.
I
let you
know
speak.
because
I let you speak.
look,
I let you
I
speak,
know,
though,
but
but I be
you're
letting you speak.
over.
I be letting you speak.
You're
I
not
be letting
thinking
you
about
speak,
what's
though. I be
being
letting you
said.
speak, man. I be letting you speak though.
Of course, you have to. You have no
So,
choice. what do you mean?
Yeah,
You
but
have
then
no
if you be
choice.
like, oh, if you have no choice and it's
Like,
not my choice
you
to
have
be
no
able to speak,
choice,
it's a
right?
debate.
It's me
Be
allowing
respectful,
you.
brother.
It's me allowing you to like, you know.
Yeah, but you're being
Anyways,
you're
right?
being ignorant, bro. You gotta be respectful. I
Because
was
we
respectful to you
got
this whole
we
time,
got.
gang.
I'm trying to be respectful. I'm laughing
Yes, you're
because it's
trying to, but you're
entertainment.
not.
But
You're not.
we've
You're
got
trying to,
past
but
the
you're not.
point. We've got past the point. Every time you agree, yeah, that athletes shouldn't be associated with drug abuse, you turn around and say, "But you can still do drugs." Right? It's like you can't actually understand. Look, you've already agreed, right, that we shouldn't promote sportsmanship and drug use, right?
You should not.
Right. So when we start having conversations in open, we start saying, well, this sportsman does drugs and look what they do. We essentially end up glorifying the very same thing we agreed that we wouldn't do. Do you get it?
Okay, I do understand that. I do understand what you're trying to say. I do get that. I do
Right.
get that. I'm not trying to promote it with being with sports. I'm not trying to promote it with sports, right? But at the end of the day, you have to get it down to, you said you're realistic and pragmatic. You have a pragmatic view on it, realistic, pragmatic view,
I
right?
try.
If we're getting down to the actual, like we're getting down to it, you cannot stop other humans from doing what they want to do on their free time.
That's not
when
true.
when they want to take stuff off, when they want to
that's not true.
wind down and stuff like that.
That's
what I'm
not
trying
true.
to say is that these fighters, you can still be a working, cohesive person
No.
while doing this stuff. You
No,
just
you
have to do
cannot.
it
You just
recreationally.
made it's like we went all through explaining all of that for you to arrive right back at the same spot. No, you
But brother,
can't. Right?
what I'm
Let me
saying is
explain
not,
why.
I'm not saying it for sports.
Bro,
I'm not saying for promoting.
in general,
I'm saying
in
it for
general.
everyday life.
Right.
Saying it for everyday
Right,
life.
so listen,
you do not have.
you are
the
not
drug is
functioning.
drug abuse. The topic is drug abuse, meaning that you're abusing the drug
Fam,
that you're using.
drug use drug use is drug abuse, right? Recreational use of a substance is drug abuse. Okay? I know people don't like to accept it like that, but drug use in a recreational
use
sense
of a
is drug
substance is
abuse.
drug abuse.
Right. Okay. So there's no like extra little like we soften the edges to make people not to make people not feel criminalized or vilified.
Could
right?
you explain it to me? Could you explain it
I'm
to me?
trying to explain it to you, right?
Okay, go
So,
ahead.
right, if you're talking about a substance, right, a chemical substance that interacts with you psychoactively, meaning it does things to your brain and it interacts with you biologically, okay, that is drug use. Now, when should drugs like that be used? In a medicinal setting. So when drugs like that are used outside a medicinal setting, which is called recreational, it is abusing the intended purpose of the drug. All right. So in the context of smoking weed, okay, weed is a plant that grows naturally. You can make various extracts from weed, topical creams like tinctures, vapes, whatever, right? Foods, hemps, etc., like textiles and stuff. When you decide that no, I'm not going to do all those things, I'm actually going to go and obtain crystallized over 21% THC buds and smoke them, you are engaging in drug abuse. Now, how is this relative to the conversation? You're saying these athletes are perfectly normal functioning people, like you making them sound like, again, like they're perfect, they're not human. Right? No,
I'm not making them sound like they're perfect.
Right.
They're functional human beings.
No, but what you're mistaken is that they're not functional. In the moments when you're using alcohol or you're using weed, you're not functional. You're actually dysfunctional, right? Because of what it's doing to you psychologically, what it's doing to you biologically. In the moment in which you're using a substance, you're dysfunctional. When you're off it, you're functional, okay?
How can you say that when there are people who are using it and being functional at the same time?
All right, so
What are you
maybe
talking
it's
about?
better to define what you mean by functional. What do you mean by functional?
Functional is being able to know your surroundings, being able to be aware of your surroundings, and being able to react based off of the things off of your surroundings. Like if you're outside and you're smoking, you can actually make sense of people walking by you. If you're drunk and you're
I would hope
plaster
so.
drunk, that's not like you're gone. You can't
Right.
control your body. You're not functional.
So-
but if you're drunk and you're a little bit tipsy and you fine and you're aware of your
So-
surroundings, I don't see that as a problem.
Right, so what your understanding is wrong, right? Being functional would be having control of all of your, like, let's just say your cognitive faculties, right? Your ability to think, your ability to choose and like manage yourself in space, move your body around.
Yes,
okay?
being aware of your surroundings.
That's part of it, right? But what is it called when someone is using drugs? They are intoxicated. Okay?
Okay.
So at the point in when you're intoxicated, drunk or high or like sleepy, whatever it is, okay, you don't have full command of your cognitive faculties. So you're not functional. Like if there was like a 100% bar, sober is functional, in control. High is maybe like 75 and down probably. Okay, so you're not functional at that point. Okay, that's what I'm explaining to you.
I mean,
that's
yes,
not
you are
normal.
functional at that. Well, not you. What you're saying, you're not functional at that point, but you are functional to a sense. Like if I smoked a whole entire blunt and I went to go play basketball, right? I can still play basketball while smoking. I can still smoke a blunt and play basketball and still perform the same way that I would do while I was sober.
You think so, right? Like this is why they made like those drug awareness and alcohol awareness
No, it's
campaigns
true.
back in the
You
day,
can.
like
You
with
can. What are you
Batman and
talking
he
about?
jumps on the
That's like
scaffolding
saying-
and
that's
he
like
drops
saying-
down and
that's
they're
like
like,
saying-
oh, like
that's
I
like
didn't
saying
know I was
Kobe-
drunk.
That's like saying, hold on. That's
No,
like saying
like,
Kobe
you
Bryant when he
think
was
you
sick.
are.
When he was sick, 100 and something fever was dropping
Fam.
points the same way he was dropping points when he was regular.
Yeah,
When he was
yeah,
regular,
like
when
that's
he wasn't
Kobe.
sick.
Again, an exception, right? An exception of talent. Like
But there
you're
are
not
people, there are
Kobe,
people who
okay?
are average people. There
No,
are average
no,
people
they're
who do
not.
the same
They're
thing.
not. They're
There are
not.
regular people who are do the same
Oh my
thing.
gosh.
I've seen it before, brother.
Fam,
Just
look.
because you've never seen it and you've never been around that type of stuff.
We are 44
don't
minutes
see
in,
it.
right? Oh, bro, you can't tell me what I've been around. Listen,
You said you don't smoke. I'm
Listen,
assuming.
right?
I'm assuming you said you don't smoke.
what it keeps coming back to is that
Come on, bro.
you have like a not necessarily a recency bias, but you have a certain bias where you look at only the successes and ignore all of the failures. Like you look at only the good things
I'm
and
not
ignore
ignoring
all
the
of
failures.
the
I'm
bad
saying the
things.
failures
Okay?
were failures because they're over abuse of drugs or
No,
liquor or
look,
what they were doing.
Fam, Right, so like let's say a human is born a blank slate, right? What's known as the tabula rasa, right? At the point in where you're a blank slate, you have like almost infinite possibility. Like this is about bringing in like determinism and all these other things that we talk about sometimes, okay? But at the point in where you're born, right, you come into this world, you don't do drugs, you don't have a language, you're just a blank slate, okay? You're at your highest potential. As you go through life, you partake in things, right? That it's like how can I explain this? It's like a cost. A cost each put it this way, for each thing that you participate in, that time is taken away from something else you could have been doing. Okay, there's a phrase for it, but I've forgotten it. All right, but as you go through the various different things you pick up and obtain in your life, your possibilities are reduced significantly. Okay, taking on drugs is one of the things that reduces your possibilities physically and psychologically. So whereas put like this, if you want to think about it in a more positive way, imagine you're training for a sport with weights, right? While you're playing with weights, you're mashing everyone up, right? But you're weighted, you've got like a piccolo suit on, right? Now imagine if you take off the weights and the piccolo suit, that potential goes way further up than what it is. So the sportsman that's using the drugs, I'm not saying he should be using it like training, like, oh yeah, so I'm good when I come off drugs, right? Probably not. You might be worse, okay? But the sportsman that has the potential, but is using substances, probably has greater potential than what he's being allowed to access because of the substances. The academic, the creative, whoever, the potential that they actually have is capped by the substance that they're engaging in, because doing this comes at the cost of doing that. Does that make sense?
Understandable. Yes, that does make sense. What I'm saying is that I'm not saying that they should be using it while they're going into matches or while they're doing stuff or while, because like me, when I go to work, I don't smoke. I go to work, I go do my thing. When I come back and I don't have anything to do,
It's called
right? And I've
opportunity
done all my
cost.
stuff. I've done all my stuff. I've done everything. I smoke. I might smoke me a blunt, smoke, maybe drink a little bit and then go to bed. Wake up the next morning, do the same thing, go to work,
Yeah.
maybe do some other stuff. I make music. I'll go to the studio, 2 a.m. in the morning, come back, smoking, drinking, whole time in the studio. We come back. Like go on tours. We'll do an open mic.
Yeah, but bro,
Smoke, high, go
how
do
is
stuff
this?
like
How
that.
is this
Like
relative? What this sounds like is you
what this
trying
is
to
relative to is
justify.
that you can
It sounds
actually
like you're
be.
just trying to justify the lifestyle you
I'm not
already
saying
live.
that. I'm not justifying my
That's
lifestyle.
what you're
I'm not
trying to do.
I'm
That's
not
what you're
justifying. No,
trying to do,
I'm not justifying my lifestyle. I'm not
brother.
justifying my
It's what you're
lifestyle.
look
What I'm
right.
trying to
It's
say is
not.
I'm trying to give an example. Like you said, you
You're
gave a
you're
real
not
world.
doing a good job
Like
of
you
it.
said, you gave a real life example of your life and how real life and how you
Where?
did stuff.
When? Like what?
You gave
I just making up
from my
stories.
you personally gave you said from
Talking
my
about.
person. You literally just gave
Guys, what are
from
you
like a
talking
couple minutes
about?
ago. You gave something of your. You was like my personal
Hey, thank
experience
you, Lou.
from what I know. Like, come on, bro. Don't even act like
No,
that.
no, I didn't. I didn't even reference anything personal this entire time. Okay, all I'm
You,
trying to explain to you is,
all
look,
right.
right, not like in a very overt way, right? You're trying to justify what you already do because it's what you know, okay? But subconsciously, as humans, we do that anyway, right? Which is gonna, all right. So now you're gonna have to follow this because other people need to hear this, right? So one of the biggest arguments about why people do drugs or should be allowed to do drugs is the view of free will and free choice and bodily autonomy. That all of that hinges on something philosophical, a view of freedom, okay, or what freedom pertains to, okay? So blank brain. The view that you have choices and you're actively, consciously going around making these choices isn't actually true on a subconscious level, okay? Subconsciously, your body, your mind is making decisions before you, the conscious you, knows them decisions have been made. So our conscious mind, we're out of time in this session, so you got to pay later. But anyways, right? Your conscious mind, okay, is like the lawyer who goes around and justifies the actions that the subconscious mind makes. So in the way that you're making these justifications about this is the lifestyle I currently live, okay, that's an expression of what is going on in the background. Okay, you're just like you're not in control of that in the same way an addict is not in control of their addiction. You're just justifying it after the fact. I do this because XYZ. No, right? There are things that happen to you and there are things that you're engaging in which cause this action. Then you try to explain this action retroactively after the fact. Okay, but I'm saying to you, there's something you can do to stop this chain of events in the first place. Okay, so again, that so you can reach that potential. That's
And
what I'm saying to you.
I get what you mean by saying you reach your potential, but you can't say that if there are people who reach the potential that they reach with doing the stuff that they're doing. Like, I
Brother,
understand what you're trying to say.
you
They can have a
ain't gonna
bigger,
learn,
higher,
man.
they can have a higher
You ain't
potential
gonna
than they
learn.
already do if they didn't do what, if they weren't smoking or if they weren't
Look,
drinking or if they weren't doing stuff like that. You know, I understand that. That is,
listen,
you know, that is true.
I understand where you're coming from, right? People have their idols. People have people that they look to as the example. Like, if he can do it, I can do it. And this can be positive, but it can also be negative. Okay, in this context, it's negative. You're using these exceptions to the rules, right? These success stories as justification for the lifestyle you're already actively partaking in. Not accepting the fact that, hey, just like the drug dealer that's successful, there's thousands that aren't. Like the singer that's successful, there's thousands that aren't. The boxer that's successful, there's thousands that aren't. You have to always keep in mind, right, here's a better way, right, of framing this. If you want to achieve something, right, and you can't figure out the roadmap to achieving that exact thing, what you should do instead is look at it and say, what are all of the things I could possibly do to make this go wrong? List them out, and then avoid those things, okay? For the thousands of people behind the one success person, they didn't do that step. Okay? So if you can see that now, you can say to yourself, all right, so at the point in which insert famous boxer here could have gone on to be world champion for a third time or fourth time, what was it that went wrong consistently? Or, you know, on this person that I like their art, what is it that went wrong here before they could have been that? Okay, in terms of what we're actually talking about, because like again, this is like it's long gapping. Okay,
Yes.
your view on, hey, this person is successful and they do drugs means I can be successful and do drugs is wrong. You have to always take account for you aren't that person, and the things that you'll face aren't the same thing that person faced. So don't like use their success as inspiration, but not as a justification.
Understand that that's understandable, but there's no justification for me. I don't feel like I'm justifying, because I'm justifying and be like, okay, you if this person can do it, this person can do it, you all everybody in the entire world can do it, and everybody could just do what
But
they
you know
want. They
that's
can
not
live the
true.
same lifestyle.
But you know
Not
that's not
exactly
true.
that's not true.
Right?
And that's
Because
not what I said.
you would say, right, look, I'm me, right? I'm Karma. Jay, you can't be me, I'm Karma. Right? So in the same way, the person you're looking to, like, you know, John Jones or whoever, right? They would say, I'm John Jones. You can't be me, Karma. Be you. Right? Look at the stupid shit that I did. Don't do that. Right? That was like, again, I was kind of what I was referencing earlier on with when football star and etc. like sportsmen became icons. One of the biggest things sportsmen used to say is, I'm not a role model. Right? I'm not trying to be your role model, which is their way of justifying the dumb and bad shit they're going to do in advance. Right? To let you know, like I'm not your role model, but you know, like marketing wise, I'm a role model. So when the bad shit about this person comes out and you see, oh look, they're fucked up too. Now it justifies your fucked up behavior. That's not what
Yeah,
we
I do
want.
get that. You trying to justify your behavior and not saying that you should be like the other person that is doing it or that
Okay.
has done it before, or that you can do it because the other person has done it before. I'm saying that there are people who are doing it. There are people who are going to do it. At the end of the day, there's no way you're going to be
You
able
are
to
back
stop
in the
it,
same
right?
place.
Yes. What do you mean we're back in the same place? If I say something, if I don't agree with you, then it's okay. We're back in the
Tio,
same place.
yes, we should absolutely.
You
We
know?
should ban sausages as well, Tio. Like all that kind
You
of
know,
shit.
so
We
I
should
feel
figure that
like
out.
at the end of the day, if it's like, yo, you smoke, right? You feel like smoking should be banned. When you feel like smoking should be banned, when there are people who make it to a high level where are cognitive or are actual people who smoke, and there are
Yes,
people who are not doing dumb
'cause,
stuff
bro,
out
they're
here because they're
humans too.
smoking, you know?
Bro, they are humans too, right? They are not infallible. They are not impervious to respiratory diseases. They are not impervious to
Yes, they're
mental
not impervious
illnesses.
to respiratory
Right?
diseases.
They're
But what's
humans
the point in
too.
saying that it's not infallible to respiratory
Because
diseases
their
when
successes,
there are people who are
fam.
getting medication that is killing them, that is prescribed by the
Yeah,
people who
that's
are
a
supposed
different
to help
point.
them?
That's a
What are we
different point.
talking about?
That is a different point that you're talking about, quite
Yeah,
obviously,
that
right?
is a
But you keep overlooking the fact that the people you're looking to as inspirational or points to be able to say they're successful and they smoke, you keep forgetting that their drug addiction isn't correlated to their success. Their success
but I
is
never said
independent
that.
of
I
their
never
drug
said
addiction.
that. You're trying to
No,
say that I said that. I
the
never said
whole
that.
it's implied in the way you're saying it. I keep saying you keep bringing
I'm
up
not
this
saying
exception to the
I
rule.
keep saying that. I'm not saying that, and I keep saying that. That
But then you turn around and say
you're
it.
saying that it's implied. I
But
keep saying
then
that
you
there's a
turn around and
distinction.
say it. You turn around and say it time after time. This person's
Yo,
successful
listen,
and
I
they do
don't want to
drugs.
do this with you.
Right? Like from the beginning of the conversation, he was stuck on this thing of like their success and their drug use is hand in hand, and their drug use is responsible for their success. And I was trying to explain to him in the very cliche like platitude type of way, you cannot compare your day one to someone's day 100. So when you see the big sportsman or you see the big podcast star sat there with the cigar and the weed and the drink and the women and all of that, you're looking at something that's one manufactured to you by all these societal structures that we've been discussing hitherto, right? But you're also looking at someone who's reached the success point and can now indulge in the recreational point. But what people forget is when they're showing you this, it's part of commercializing the subject or the product that they're using in the first place. Okay? Why do you think so many famous celebrities associate themselves with alcohol brands? So many famous celebrities associate themselves with various other harmful things. Okay, it's manufactured. You can't look at them as the rule. They're the exception. For every one successful person you see, there are thousands who aren't. And for every one successful person you see, there are a whole bunch of people holding that motherfucker together. Okay, you ain't them. So just consider that. All right. But anyways, right. I should stay on for the rest of the night, but I really can't be bothered. But hey, tomorrow we'll come and we'll listen with fresh ears and we'll talk differently. Black Chad, maybe. I appreciate you, Lou, as well. I see you in the chat. It would have been nice to talk about some like hot takes or just random topics instead of the subject, but here we are. It's not though, right? That was one of the things we were circling around to, Green Bunny. That's what I was. That's kind of like the through line between the statement at the top and the statement at the bottom, right? Right. Who decides words creates power? Who can describe you creates power, and that power can be politicized and used in various different systems. Okay. Views on free will and bodily autonomy are valid, but the reality of how they play out are very different. Because not me personally, but a speculative I is providing you the framework of the freedom that you think you're accessing. Just like a speculative I is providing the framework of the product you're accessing with your supposed free will. So essentially, right, the freedom that you should have as the tabula rasa, if possible, is already coerced from you from the moment you engage with the system. I don't know how you could take that power back. There are like arguments and things that like we can get into with like fun leftist people and even some crazy righties. But that's for another time. But the idea that you're just making this free choice to smoke and it isn't hurting anybody is nonsense. There's structure on top of structure that brings us to these points in history. They're not like ahistoric kind of things, just like things that people just think like I just jumped out of bed one day and started smoking. No, like there's just basic nature and nurture, then there's coercion, then there's marketing, there's psychology, like it's there's lots to it. So for you to ever think that you interacting with an illicit drug or a legal drug was your free choice, you're misinformed, all right? That was someone else's choice. Okay. But anyways, I've been on too long. We heard the timer go and I just ignored it. I do want to stay, but this is what happens, right? I go away for some time and I want to come back and speak to people, and then I remember people are people. Anyways, I appreciate you all coming on. Tomorrow we'll talk more, maybe. Right. You should ban smoking because the cons outweigh the pros. And before I leave, now you've dragged me into it again. Here's how you should ban it, right? First thing you do is you make it illegal, but you decriminalize it. It helps people who are currently using the substances not be overly policed. Instead of sending them through the jail system, giving them a criminal record, this is like policy ideally, right? If we can like get onto some politicians, what we do is we decriminalize it. Instead of giving them criminal records and putting them through the system, we issue them like civil fines or mandatory education depending on the severity and frequency. Okay, the next thing you do is you regulate the production of the tobacco, and when cannabis starts to become more commercialized, you regulate the production of the cannabis. And you try to get, well, we lobby or we make it mandate that they reduce the addictive quality of nicotine and THC by 90%, allowing for that same like bodily autonomy and like philosophical take that you should be able to do what you want, and also help the people who are currently using drugs, right? Because it'll be easier to get off by regulating out the addictive quality. Okay, the next thing you do is you bring in a piece of legislation like the Ash Act. You make it impossible for young people to access the market in the future, which puts a stop on the big money of the corporations doing it legally, and it also helps safeguard. But the last two things are probably the most important things. You subsidize smoking cessation services and you actively promote them. Okay, to subsidize means to basically put some taxpayers' money in play for a cause. A smoking cessation is help to stop smoking. I've used it when I quit smoking. It was perfect. It worked very well. What it does is people, well, not people in our country, it's the NHS. In your country might be something different. They provide you with chewing gums, patches, and various other intravenous substances, not substances, but like medications if you need them to help you get off tobacco. But I think it has to be subsidized or philanthropized. That's not even a word. Some philanthropists can put some money into it and help it get off the ground, because people have to produce the products, people have to buy the products, people have to disseminate the information, right? So the last two most important pieces: subsidize smoking cessation services and socially engineer it. So we have open discourse like we've been doing, right? We show the case studies of people who started smoking at certain ages. If you actually pay attention to the last couple of streams, what do I ask people? Have they ever worked in the industry, right? What substance did they use? What age did they start using it? Have they ever tried to quit before, right? This is data, okay? This is real world data, because these are people that we're talking to, okay? So, yeah, so finally, we try to socially engineer it out of society. So we remove like the overly corporate capture of coolness from smoking, because it's our media, it's our music, it's our cultures that make this thing possible to thrive in the first place. So we can snatch that power back socially. So we don't have to have an authoritarian nanny state tell us we can't do it. We just say, fuck you, we're not doing it anyway. Right? That's how it works. But anyways, so decriminalize, regulate production, legislate so younger people can't access the market, subsidize smoking cessation, and socially engineer it out. And then we'll talk about it tomorrow. That's coming to my TED Talk. Yeah.